10 coats of paint stained in tobacco.
Good afternoon. It's me, Victoria Taft, and this guy here. I'll take him off for just a second while I set up and tee off what we're going to be doing this edition of Epstein Thursday on the Adult in the Room podcast. Okay, so much going on. We've got some paid protesters being teed up for the No Kings big protests this weekend. Let's see what else. So yeah, the guy who helps pay for all those people to go out and do whatever, maybe commit acts of violence. He's in the crosshairs of the feds. Actually, it's very interesting. In the banking industry, very interesting. Maybe it's even the IRS is involved as well. So yeah, so that's coming up. We'll tell you a little bit about that. A sit rep from Iran and how things are being teed up there to produce an agreement from Iran. Not that we want the same Islamists in charge, but you know, it's a starting point. Trump's creating some leverage. So now I have a question for people who came for Epstein Thursday. We're going to start out with Epstein in depth, and it's because we're going to do two depositions which occurred earlier this week, and I'm not doing both of them today because they're nearly both each 7 hours. So my thinking is that today we ought to go over in the Oversight Committee's testimony, the testimony of Darren Indyke, who is the personal attorney, general counsel for Jeffrey Epstein over 23 years, from the 1990s until, well, he's still an attorney acting as a representative of the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. He's the guy who's been, making sure that everybody who sued Epstein's estate gets paid off, all of his sex victims, and much, much more. So here's what my thinking was. There's some really interesting things to do to set things up. But they keep asking the same questions over and over and over again. And I know you want answers. I know I do. And what we'll do is we're going to go over the latter portion, 2 hours about portion of his deposition. It's a sworn testimony under subpoena before the House Oversight Committee. And the House Oversight Committee is looking into how it is that this sweetheart deal by the feds for Jeffrey Epstein in 2008 became a thing, and how it was that they came back later to go after him, and that was Comey's daughter was the prosecutor in charge of that through SDNY, which was the Southern District of New York Prosecutorial Office of Feds. She very closely proscribed that trial, so there were very few things that were. This was, of course, for Ghislaine Maxwell. I hope I said that right the first time. And so we've got lots of ground to cover. But this guy was the person who, for 23 years, was his attorney, and he, depending on how you look at it, he grabbed the brass ring and a guy who's got all kinds of money. And he goes over where he thinks he got the money and how he earned that money from a lot of certified rich guys. And that's earlier in the deposition, which we can go over after we're done with this part, because I think this part is where a lot of the meat happens right away. And subsequent questions. You may not like the yes or no questions, and that's fine, because we're going to go back. But we may not get to the whole thing today because it's a 7-hour deposition. And I went through, and there's no, at least when I began this prep, what am I trying to say? I'm looking for the transcript is what I'm trying to say for this thing. There's no transcript. So I had to go log my own tape, as they call it in the business. I had to go log my own tape, and that's what happens. You have to go through an interview and you go, okay, here's what this happens, here's what this. AI had limited help, absolutely limited help in the information that you could get. And indeed, I found out, as you should, with AI all the time. I don't care if you think it's real smart or anything. I don't care. Nobody cares, because it's not true. It is not true that AI will be error-free. Clearly not. Because I'd go back and certain things, and then I'd never find what they said. Well, that occurs here, here, and here. And I went back like twice to get, where he says, Indike says that he was just a sucker. He didn't know. Drank the Kool-Aid. Well, I'm looking for drank the Kool-Aid, which would be easy enough to find on a transcript, but ain't no way I'm going to be able to just sort of excise that. So AI was wrong in telling me where it was. I went back to AI and I go, okay, it was wrong. So really, where is it? Or who asked the question X, Y, and Z? Because God, that guy sounds like Jamie Raskin, and it was House member Min. I think he's from Orange County. Oh, Lord have mercy. People. I mean, Jasmine Crockett was in the room for a while. He made her look like a Rhodes Scholar, okay? So, yes, there is a filter, my God, yes. Yeah, there's no problem with that, right? So, yeah. So let's go. You ready? We're going to start at 4-hour, 14-second mark. Minute mark. 4-hour, 14-minute mark. And this is the attorney who was Jeffrey Epstein's attorney for 23 years, starting in the mid-90s, and he's the executor of his estate. Something interesting before we get into it. He's going to get $50 million. He and the bean counter for Epstein, who was also deposed earlier this week, they get money. But it's only if there's anything left in the estate. So basically, dude's working for free. This is interesting. So you need to know that because it's important. All right, let's go. Here he is, Mr. Indike, which they keep to the Democrats. because this happens. They're staking out their own territory, and they keep sort of, I think, contorting his name to make it sound like he's Indict instead of Indike. Yeah, so, or maybe it's my old ears. I don't know. Let's go.
2 times, maybe 3 times. Also, once in passing, and once I was delivering a document, a trust document to
Can everybody hear it?
to Mr. Staley. Yes,
Why was that?
Mr. Staley was a signatory on a trust
Which,
for Mr. Epstein.
do you recall which trust?
It was a prior iteration of an estate planning trust.
Did you ever become aware of Mr. Staley having a sexual relationship with any women connected to Jeffrey Epstein?
I have no personal knowledge of that, never observed anything like that. After Epstein's death, I became aware there were allegations, I think, in the bank litigation that Staley had a relationship. Mr. Staley had a relationship. I have no way of knowing whether that's true or not.
Mr. Endick, if I could return to the topic of private investigators. Sorry, I'm gonna table this one for the moment and come back to it.
It actually does get juicy, so stand by. I started it a little early because I wanted to make sure.
Skipping ahead to Mr. Epstein's death.
And BT Dubs, I think this is men, and I'm going to take you to a spot later. He's just, I mean, he was, you can tell he was not a litigator. Me neither. I'm not an attorney. But, unfortunate and stupid.
And subsequent developments. When was the last time you spoke with Jeffrey Epstein?
A couple of days before he died.
What did you talk about?
This is the part.
And just to be clear on that,
It's privilege. It was not personal. It was privilege. It was based upon his being in the jail at the time, and it was regarding subjects that one would talk about, like bail and things like that.
Okay, so I am going to ask the witness for the substance of those conversations.
No, you're not.
subject to attorney-client privilege.
Yeah,
He's
I think
not
so.
going to be able to answer
I'm not
the
gonna do-
details on that.
Okay, so I'm going to refer that one to the majority for a ruling, and for the record, the question is.
Okay, that's whatever. Here's the backstory about this. And a lot of the tops of the news stories about this. Well, that explains. I mean, can you imagine why the feds never bothered to talk to these guys in their investigation? Well, it does seem like that you'd want to make an overture at these guys. But bottom line is, he's my client. It's a private, personal, confidential between an attorney and a client. It's called a privilege. The only person I've seen have their privilege pierced by Joe Biden was Donald Trump, which was it's an absolute travesty that happened. I mean, so you may hate Jeffrey Epstein, and I'm sure most of us do, but you can't deny that the chief reason why the feds were not able to talk to these guys is that it was privileged information, confidential information. Now, there are other reasons. I'm sure they tried to, give him the old Heisman move, and that's why they didn't talk to him. But that's the issue here. They're trying to stick with it, even though he was only a tangential person, he says, on Jeffrey Epstein's defense team. Generally speaking, he's his general counsel. He did transactional things like acquisitions of, creating LLCs, which you'll hear about as well. Okay, let's go.
What did Jeffrey Epstein say to you during your last conversation with him those 2 days before he died?
He's preserving that question for the record so he can come back to it.
And you have a generic description of them already from the witness.
The will as we discussed earlier today, Mr. Endyke named you and Mr. Khan as co-executors.
Mr. Indite. See?
It also provides, as I understand it, for Jeffrey Epstein's assets to ultimately be transferred to the 1953 trust. Is that correct?
That's also correct.
And that,
But let's take a moment on that. That's only after the will and the estate is fully probated, which means that all claims are paid. All of those issues have to be resolved before any assets, if there are any remaining, go to that trust and then are subject to the terms of that trust.
and it's also my understanding that you and Karina Shuliak are the largest beneficiaries under the trust, with bequests of $50 million respectively. Is that right?
Not exactly right. I believe that Karina has several bequests under that will, including the properties, including an annuity, and including another disposition. The total amount of the dollar amounts, I believe, are like $100 million to her, plus all of
Wow.
the properties were to go to her. But obviously that didn't happen.
But I am correct that the trust includes a bequest to you of $50 million.
Trust includes a bequest to me for $50 million. Yes, but that, again, that only comes to play if any money is distributed to that trust, and as it stands right now, certainly that amount's not coming to the trust, if anything.
Did you discuss with Jeffrey Epstein the subject of his making you a beneficiary of the trust?
Just briefly, other than that he was doing it, and I should give direction to the attorney that was working on it to make the changes.
Do you have an understanding as to why he named you as a beneficiary?
No, I can't tell you what was in his mind.
Did it surprise you?
No, I was a beneficiary in previous iterations. But I, like many people, and many of the both professionals, assistants, colleagues, many people were in the document.
Well, I think to come at it another way, the question, I'm sure you can understand, arises, given, as you've testified earlier, that your relationship with Mr. Epstein was professional rather than social, why would he include you as a beneficiary in his estate to the tune of $50 million?
I can only speculate, and I don't want to speculate too far into it. Couple of things. Epstein had a brother who didn't have a lot of friends that he communicated with regularly, which is why the assets in his estate, it seemed to me, were distributed to people that were associated with him on a professional level. I think, I think that the bequests to me, as well as to Mr. Khan, were large bequests, because there was a lot of work to be done in this estate, very complex estate, a lot of work, and the estate planning documents didn't provide for payment to us. And I think the idea was for the bequest to be payment. For estates of this size, typically the more direct route for this is paying the administrators a percentage of the assets. In this case, well over $600 million were the assets in this estate, and paid over time. In addition, it's anticipated in many instances that both the executors will also be doing other services, sometimes accounting work and legal work and things like that. So I believe that part of this was an understanding that Mr. Khan and I would be providing substantial services for a very, very complex document, a very complex estate.
Okay, so they're trying to set up a narrative whereby they say he was going to get money as long as he kept his mouth shut. I think that's what they're going for here. And so, so listen carefully. It seems like that's what they're going to come out of this deposition saying. but I don't think that's what we're hearing. But maybe I'm naive.
And services, again, it's a lot of, I don't mean to imply that's not a lot of money, but other folks who would have gotten paid for managing an estate of this size would have gotten, given the complexity of the estate and given the amount, we've been working on this for 7 years. 7 years is probably another 3 to go, maybe more, by the time all the claims are resolved. I think given the complexity and the size, the compensation is a lot, but in that context, you have a different view.
One thing to mention here, this audio is not my fault. It's low. The whole thing was low. And there were so many complaints during the entire deposition about how he wasn't speaking loudly enough and that kind of thing. But the entire audio from this thing is low. And I've got it turned up full blast. So just so you know. Come on, man.
I think we will end our hour there as we go off the record.
Yeah, so they did this multiple times over the deposition. They go off the record in about a minute. They cut the vid for a minute, and then they come back. And so now this is the Republicans asking questions
We'll
now.
go back on the record.
Reminder,
Oh.
this is the last 2 hours of his depo, or approximately the last 2 hours plus of his depo. And the depo lasted for nearly 7 hours. So I'm bringing you what I consider to be the meatiest portion of it, where you get the most answers per minute. And there we are.
The minority wishes to make a statement.
Yeah, just to clarify, for the record, previous colloquy with counsel over the assertion of privilege as to the question, what did Jeffrey Epstein tell you during your conversation with him 2 days prior to his death? We would like to refer that question to the chairman for a ruling as to the applicability of privilege.
Thank you. Mr. Timmons?
In the case that was recently settled, Shane Doe 3 v. Endyke and Khan, it's my understanding that you all sought to not disclose communications under attorney-client privilege, and the judge ruled that those communications were not protected because of the crime fraud exception.
Incorrect. What's your next question?
So the judge never ordered you all to turn over any documents because he deemed them not protected because of the crime fraud exception?
Correct.
Okay.
This happened over and over to David Min. I mean, it's just, oh, okay.
Mr. Endyke, I would like to briefly
Why don't you use it
return to
for
the
something
loans that
useful?
Mr. Epstein extended to yourself and other employees. Is it fair to say that it was customary that he would provide these loans to employees?
He was generous to many of his employees. And yes, did loan money to his employees.
This guy.
Would you have drafted the
This guy got loaned $7 million in transactions for moving housing. He moved for Jeffrey Epstein, he and his wife and their kids. So they have kids because Jeffrey Epstein gave them IVF because they were having fertility issues. And Jeffrey Epstein, let's see, what else did he do? Gave him a bunch of money, $7 million over a period of years, to invest. And he talked about how he used some of that money for investment, but he also used the money just to help the family members that he helps. I mean, and he starts naming them off, and it's like, dude, do you have anything left over for you at the end of the month?
loan agreements?
It would have been a promissory note, yes. But after, there was a form promissory note that was circulating around the office.
Keep your voice up.
Sorry, there was a form promissory note that was circulating around.
Told you.
As far as the loans themselves, were the loans ever used to justify large movements of money?
No,
Were loan agreements ever used to make illicit funds appear legitimate?
No.
Mr. Indike, have you ever advised clients to destroy documents?
No.
Have you ever been instructed to destroy documents?
No. I've never been instructed to destroy documents. There are, in the context of corporate law, there are document retention programs. After a certain number of years, you can feel comfortable destroying documents, but no. Never instructed and never received instructions to destroy this.
And this is important. I'm going to go
So I want to
pause this for a
return
second.
to,
This is important because the narrative is, the story is, the belief is that Jeffrey Epstein was, somebody dropped a dime and told Jeffrey Epstein that the cops were coming and they were going to go and raid his house. He got more help from the cops or whoever was the person or entity that dropped the dime than Donald Trump did when they raided Mar-a-Lago in 2023. I guess that's the allegation. So this is important because they believe that there were hard drives and or computers and all kinds of things that were removed from Jeffrey Epstein's properties, which I believe is the one in Palm Beach is the one we're really talking about, prior to the raid. Okay, so it's important because that would be law breaking. And he goes, "Nuh-uh, not me, Han, not me." And the other issue that this pertains to is the hiring of private investigators, and that is believed to have been done by the defense attorneys for Epstein in his criminal trial, of which this guy was one, but he was sort of, he's not a criminal attorney, so he would just offer up whatever and be able to use that if, to the extent he could, use it for the purposes of paying bills and that sort of thing, which is basically what the guy did. And so that's also something, but the PIs come up because they allegedly are the ones they believe, at least if you listen to the questions that they're asking. And of course, they are seeding, SEEDING, seeding this depot with these questions to establish a narrative that has not been supported by the facts and evidence. So you have to watch out for that, which is another reason why when you say, okay, so-and-so's name's in the Epstein file. What does that mean? Well, we don't. Well, he was his dry cleaner. He must be guilty of something. Got it? So silliness. But so be able to discern for yourself the information. And that's what I'm doing here as well. So we're all learning together. Isn't this fun? Let's go. Let's keep going with Darren Indike, who is Jeffrey Epstein's attorney for 23 years. And in addition to that is the co-executor with his accountant of his estate and the payouts paid to the women who sued the estate for millions of dollars. I mean, all these, by the way, just FYI, all the women involved here who are the victims, they've each earned millions of dollars from the multiple lawsuits against the banks that did business with Jeffrey Epstein, and in addition with the estate. Also notable, and I'll try not to belabor it, but basically Jeffrey Epstein was at some point in the 2000s debanked. He was debanked because of his affiliation. Well, because we presumably, not established, but it's believed, it's because he was found to be, he pleaded guilty, right, to the rape or the prostitution, soliciting prostitution of a minor. So soliciting prostitution of a minor, that doesn't sound exactly like what it was he was doing. But, so you know, these are all important little aspects. I just bring you up to speed so that you don't have to sort of make up things in your head. You actually know the connective tissue here. So let's get back to it with the attorney.
the discussion during the previous hour, as it related to computers that were removed, it was your testimony, you had no personal knowledge of that, and you learned subsequently, is that correct?
That's correct.
And during our first hour, I asked you if you had any knowledge that anyone would have tipped off Mr. Epstein to the October 20th search warrant in Palm Beach. I believe that you testified no. Is that right?
That's correct.
Did you subsequently learn that Mr. Epstein was tipped off to the search warrant?
No,
Oops.
Were you aware that Mr. Epstein had storage units?
I don't, can you tell me when and which storage unit you're referring to? Because I have storage units, but not for Mr. Epstein. So I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Mr. Indite, it has been reported that Mr. Epstein directed private detectives to hide secret files in storage units across the U.S. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I have no knowledge of that.
And you haven't subsequently learned that he had any such process for hiding or concealing?
Correct, I have not learned that.
Earlier, you testified that Mr. Epstein maintained a safe room. Can you elaborate on what the safe room was?
I was not in the safe room. I actually never went inside it, but it was pointed out to me that it was a safe room, and by safe room, what that means is as I understand it, what that means is that if somebody is coming into your house to do you harm, you go into this room and they can't get in the room, and you are there locked in and protected in the safe room.
It's a panic room is
That's
what he's
I
talking
meant by
about.
safe room. And as I understand it, it is fairly typical on the outside of the safe room to have a camera pointing down so that you can see if people are trying to get into the safe room.
Another thing, he says he did not have a personal per se relationship. They were not social friends. He went to one event that was for Les Wexner for his Victoria's Secret thing. He went to one event with where Jeffrey Epstein was he was there, but they didn't really. He says they didn't really say, "Hey, how you doing?" That's it. Pretty much it. And all the attorneys were invited to that, and that was to help out Les Wexner. So one of our viewers this afternoon says, "Well, he was paid all that money, he knows nothing," and yeah, but he does know some things, which he does reveal in due course. But I think he preferred it that way, staying dumb, smart way to be. It's like, la, 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 I don't want to know kind of a thing. All right, keep going.
Did you advise him to get a safe room?
No, I had no idea he had a safe room until after he died, and I told the residents.
Now, during the previous hours, it's come up numerous times, Mr. Epstein hired private investigators as a result of the 2006 investigation. Is that right?
My understanding is that his defense counsel hired private investigators.
Who were the private investigators?
I believe Riley Corral was a private investigator.
Did you have any interactions with the investigators or Mr. Curley?
I have no specific recollection of an interaction with them.
Now, I asked you during the first hour if you had ever directed private investigators in any way. I believe you testified that you had not.
But in connection with the investigation?
Correct.
Correct.
Did you subsequently learn about the directions that they were receiving from other counsels?
Not in any real substantive manner. I knew that there were communications, or I became aware of their communications that had happened between them, but I wasn't privy to the content of the communications.
it's been alleged that the private investigators were acting in such a way that was intimidating towards those that they were following. You didn't know anything about that?
I remember seeing that allegation, and I don't recall where I saw that allegation, and that was, I think that happened. I think that happened during the investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office, if I'm not mistaken.
He's asked if you have personal knowledge of it.
But I have no personal knowledge of it. That's, if it's personal knowledge, the answer is no. Sorry, thank you.
And you mentioned the private investigators that you knew of. Do you know what company they were with?
No.
Does Roadruck Investigation sound familiar to you?
That name sounds familiar to me. It does sound familiar to me, yes. I don't know that it's because of that, but the name sounds familiar to me. And I think I could supplement that a little bit. I believe Roadruck was used for background checks on new employees.
Are there any storage units that were at any time in possession of the trust after Jeffrey Epstein's death?
Can you repeat the question, please?
After following Mr. Epstein's death, were there any storage units in possession of the trust?
Estate of the committee. Estate.
No, the estate.
So after Mr. Epstein's death, there were storage units, but the storage units happened after we inventoried the assets and then moved them out of the houses into storage.
So
They're
disappointed.
Created after his death.
They're disappointed because they go, oh, well, I thought they started putting a whole bunch of stuff in there to hide it from the cops in the mid to later 2000s. And so that's why they, had storage units, And it turns out that, no, I actually was not running. I don't know anything about storage units at those times. I know about the storage units I got for the purposes of putting all this stuff in after he died. And so, yeah, it's important. People say, oh, storage units, that's where all the stuff was hidden. Not so fast, Sparky. Not necessarily.
And, furniture and whatever, clothing and all the stuff that's in each of the houses.
I'm going to zoom out a little bit and just talk about why we're here. And it seems that almost 300 victims have been documented, and there's possibly up to another 100 out there. And pre-2008, 200 have been documented, of which 70% of those, these are all approximate, were underage. Post-2008, there have been 70 documented. My understanding is 0% were underage. To compensate those victims, there's been around $750 million.
Okay, hold on. Because there are a lot of allegations being made here. But I just want to reiterate who this is. This is, because somebody just asked, Darren Indyke, who is Jeffrey Epstein's private attorney for 23 years, starting in the mid-1990s all the way up to his death. He last saw Jeffrey Epstein 2 days before he died when he was, at Rikers Island. And so the guy knows, been there, done that, and doesn't know he knows some things, not everything. He continues to swear during his deposition, his sworn testimony, which is what this is, that he didn't know anything about the sex stuff. He didn't know any of that stuff. So he never saw him with young girls. He was shocked when he found out after he'd been in trouble with the law in Florida that he was up to his tricks, that he was, for which he was, he pled guilty. And he was shocked. He can't believe it because Jeffrey Epstein was so upset that he was involved. He was caught, basically caught. Okay, so let's continue on with the attorney for Jeffrey Epstein that everybody wants to know. He must have known. He paid people off. He had to have known about everything. You'd be the judge.
Dollars in settlements from J.P. Morgan, Deutsche.
I'm going to start that over again because it's actually pretty good
Clothing and all
line.
the stuff that's for each of the houses.
There we go.
Are there any storage units that were at
Hold
any
on.
time in possession of the trusts after Jeffrey Epstein's death?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Following Mr. Epstein's death,
Storage
were
units.
there any storage units in possession of the trust?
Did you shred documents and put them in the storage unit?
No, the estate.
So after Mr. Epstein's death, there were storage units, but the storage units happened after we inventoried the assets and then moved them out of the houses into storage. They were relationships created after his death, based upon, furniture and whatever, clothing and all the stuff that's in each of the houses.
I'm going to zoom out a little bit and just talk about why we're here. It seems that almost 300 victims have been documented, and there's possibly up to another 100 out there. And
This is news because they're going on the assumption that there are possibly a universe of 400 victims. And maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but we understand that the DOJ has put the number at more like 1,000 because that's how many people have basically been paid off. And by that, I mean who sued and or made themselves known as a part of a class action lawsuit to come after Epstein's estate and the banks that allowed him to exist and, use their banks for the furtherance of all of his awfulness. Okay, so that's why he was debanked. It's another reason why this attorney, Mr. Indike, Darren Indike, also would get money out like cash for him because he couldn't do anything in the banks by himself. And so, there was money he got out for, I don't know, $7,000 at a time, kind of a deal for walking around money. Okay, let's continue.
Pre-2008, 200 have been documented, of which 70% of those, these are all approximate, were underage. Post-2008, there have been 70 documented. My understanding is that 0% were underage. To compensate those victims, there's been around $750 million in settlements from J.P. Morgan, Deutsche Bank, the estate, Bank of America. And I think the purpose of this entire exercise is additional accountability. The American people are pissed. And I think appropriately so. A very wealthy man has taken advantage and ruined a lot of lives. And so I kind of view the whole purpose of this as being five different things we're doing. Number one, it seems there's allegations that pre-2008 underage women were engaging in sex with rich old dudes. And we want a list of those names, and we're trying to figure that out. Second, there's possible undue influence associated with the guilty plea and the fact that he never really went to jail for stuff that put him on the sex offender registry. I was a prosecutor for 5 years. I know people that
Not that you'd
did less than
notice.
him that got a very long time in jail, and it seemed
By the way, not so you'd notice this guy. Oh, I was a prosecutor. And watch out. He's going to get B-slapped, and he's going to get B-slapped in just a second. But this is David Min, congressman from California, pretty sure. Orange County stole that job, I'm sure. Orange County, how dare you? Here we go. Oh, yeah, I better turn it on, Victoria. Wouldn't that be helpful?
that he was given a sweetheart deal. Number three, we want accountability for the people that conspired to continue the same scheme that he had pre-2008. And honestly, I'll get back to that in a minute, but that's the number one reason you're here. Number four, whether a foreign government or federal agency was involved in any of this. why he was doing the things that he was doing. It didn't make sense. And then last, but certainly not least, deterrence to future perpetrators. Make sure this doesn't happen again. Back to number 3. The American people want accountability for people that conspired with Jeffrey Epstein to destroy these lives. And you have been his attorney for
It's coming.
decades.
It's coming. Just
And
wait.
you were instrumental to his operations, his estate's operations, and you've received millions and millions of dollars for that. So you're here answering questions. We appreciate that. I'm going to walk you through the scheme that occurred post 2008, and it's really hard for me to believe that you were not complicit. You were not an instrumental part of his human trafficking operation. So, for purposes of words, the only assistant he had was Leslie Groff. Everyone else is a survivor or a victim, whichever one you want to use. He may have called them assistants, but he had a scheme.
Is there a question in there somewhere? No, not for a minute.
His scheme was to get them into the United States somehow. Some of them, it was promise of education. Some of it was promise of modeling careers or jobs, whatever it was. And once he got them in, he used a pretty complicated scheme to trap them. And you actually were a part of every single one of those things. Immigration was one. I want to talk to you about that because you said that while you have had interactions with Arda Bascardes, there was just a lot of really shady things that were going on. And so
Wow.
you communicate with him about the 2 marriages for the assistants to each other. And it's your...
Now, what he's talking about, if he ever shuts up, I mean, is that there were people given homes or down payments for homes in an LLC, and this guy, who's Epstein's attorney, set up all the LLCs. And he goes, I was just asked to set up LLCs. I don't know who all the people were, but he knew it was for Jeffrey Epstein's his clients. Because remember, Jeffrey Epstein was a money manager of sorts. But don't ask Les Wexner about that. wait. You don't know nothing. So anyway, we should probably just go over chapter and verse of the Les Wexner one too. I mean, I've done deep dives on it, but we should probably just do it because it was just an amazing display of complete idiocy on the part of the people asking the questions. I mean, because Les Wexner, you're not going to believe this, but Les Wexner just knew absolutely nothing. I mean, he's just like $150 million. I don't know what happened to it. You know, it's just crazy. Okay. So here we go. David Min eventually will get to a point. We don't know how long it's going to be. I just remember eventually he's upbraided. Let's listen and watch, shall we?
It's your testimony here today under oath that you did not realize those were sham marriages.
Just to be clear, because that was a long statement.
This-
And
this is
I
a
know
long
there's a
question.
question at the end.
I won't
You
put that in
don't want
there
them,
because
just
I'm
to
gonna
be,
shut the table.
okay, well, but that's not fair to set a table, not give them a chance to react, but then say, so after that, I have a very
Let's
simple
pause.
question.
So he's alleging that there was an immigration scam going on and that he gave these people this home and they set up an LLC, and then he did it in order to hide the fact that these people weren't illegally in the United States, because now he's being, this whole thing is now turned into an immigration scam, and this is where this gets to, of course, the trafficking aspect of this. The former president Joe Biden. I mean, if you wanted to bring the charges against him, if there wasn't, an immunity, you could just say, well, he oversaw the biggest trafficking scam in the entire United States history in the last 4 years, from 2020 to 2025. And you would be correct in that. So in the same vein as that was sex trafficking, this also is alleged to have been sex trafficking. And now the attorney for Jeffrey Epstein's attorney, Darren Indyke, is now trying to go back and say, is there a question here? Specifically a question that you would like him to answer? Because now you're making speeches, dude, which of course is what he wants to do. He wants to make a speech. Of course. Duh.
Just to be clear,
Before
you just want them to
we'll back
answer
up.
the simple
We'll
question.
back up. We'll back up. Remove my question. for the purposes of
There
the rest
was no
of my
question.
questions, Leslie Groff is an assistant. Everyone else is a victim or a survivor. And I'm going to ask you about the scheme that occurred after that. If you want to argue with anything that I just said before I ask you questions about the scheme that occurred that you seem complicit in, by all means, say whatever you'd like.
That's not a question. I mean, come on.
Okay, so I just I
ask
set the
one
table.
question
Okay,
and see if
very
it
simple.
does.
Your question is this:
I'm laughing because
do you believe
he's got
that
nothing. So he's going to
two
pound the table.
marriages that you helped facilitate with Arda Biscardi's were legitimate marriages or not?
I don't know.
But just because I think you asked that you helped facilitate the marriages. He's already testified. He didn't even know in advance of the
All right, so
marriages.
Are you aware of the email in the Epstein files that I can get for you that says from Epstein to him, copying both of you? I think that Arda Biscardi's is going to flip on.
This is one, I've seen that email. This is one of those, I believe I have, those situations in which you're going to pound the table because you want to just put a bunch of crap out there and make sure that the flak's flying so that nobody can get the signal for the noise. And then what happens is, then you go, well, you go along this question, road that you're taking. You're going along the hiking trail, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to ask these questions, and then you don't bring the very document that you claim to have, upon which all of this resides and rests. Get out of here, you piker! Prosecutor for 7 years, my ass. Holy shinola! What a loser. Here we go.
So, I mean, what was he going to flip on? What information did he have that would have caused him to flip on you?
Okay, I have no recollection of that email. And let me be clear, I have no belief at the time that I did anything for these marriages that they were sham marriages. I didn't believe
It wasn't
them.
just the marriages.
I didn't
though.
believe, let me finish, please, sir. I didn't believe them to be sham marriages. I didn't have any reason to believe they were. These are women who I believed were associated with these are women I believed to be associated with each other. I wasn't part of their social world. I did not question them why they got married, but they did get married. And I wasn't part of arranging those marriages. Absolutely was not.
Did Epstein ever talk to you about trying to arrange marriages with members of the opposite sex to the women you call assistants, but were actually survivors or were victims?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not even sure what that question was.
Did Jeffrey Epstein talk to you about marrying his assistants to other people in an attempt to address immigration fraud?
No.
Have you ever beaten your wife?
Did you create leases for the 6 victims, survivors, at 301 East 66th Street for the purpose of immigration fraud?
I did not create leases, number one. It wasn't for immigration fraud that I obtained a copy of the leases from OSA Properties to give to Arda Biscardi's. I was requested by the women to get a copy of the lease so that they could give it to Arda, and I did so.
Did leases exist prior to that moment, or were they just staying there without a lease?
I don't know when the leases were created.
Okay.
I don't know when the leases were created. But given that this was property that Epstein had an ownership or a leasing interest in, it doesn't surprise me that if they were living in that property, they didn't have a written document. And they needed a written document in order to give it to immigration. So when they asked me for their written document, I asked OSA, do you have a lease? Can you get me a lease?
Did you ever change the lease for one individual to include 2 for the purposes of the immigration application? Was one person on a lease, and then because the idea was saying, all right, we're going to marry these two, well, I don't know that. Did you change a lease that had one person's name on it to change that lease to put 2 people's name on it for the purpose of then giving it to Arda Biscardi's for the purpose of then filing for immigration documents?
I think I probably did, yeah.
Got it.
I think I did, yeah.
All right. You said earlier that you didn't know
But
where.
let's talk about that for a minute, because I know you want to jump to the next conclusion. Let's talk for that for a minute. If somebody gives me a lease and tells me this I need to give for immigration, and it doesn't have both parties to the lease on the lease, I would have said to them, you should put both parties on the lease.
Let me we're going to walk through a bunch of questions
no, but-
here,
but
and you're
that's
going to have an
important.
answer to all of them. But
But that's
when
important.
you listen to these answers, you're going to say, "Oh, that's interesting. That could be true in this little narrow scope." But then when you put them all together, it creates a different story. So we're going to keep going.
Your story is based upon a hindsight that's based upon allegations that are made now looking back.
Correct.
And your story assumes that I had knowledge that these women had sexual relationships with Jeffrey, that these women didn't have relationships with each other, and I absolutely did not. Okay? So
Okay,
you can
and
piece together however you want,
we're going to piece it together.
however you want.
Okay, so
But you cannot make something that's not true.
these 6 or 7 survivors, when they got to this country, under the promise of a job of education, of modeling, whatever it is, they then have an immigration issue. So
Except I don't know,
that
I don't know how
immigration
they
is-
got to this country. I don't know about those promises. I know nothing of that.
A lot of this is public record, and
That doesn't
So
mean
they-
that I have knowledge of it. I'm sorry, but you were imputing knowledge to me that doesn't exist.
so then they have to find a way to stay here, and the way to stay here was through this immigration scheme, which you were not overtly complicit in, according to you, but it seems that there's a lot of variables that cause a lot of questions. So let's go to the next one. Businesses. You previously said that you did not set up businesses for any of these victims. And I'm going to ask you again, did you set up LLCs for any of the people that you call assistants that have been deemed victims by many courts?
I believe that I testified that SLK Designs is something that I formed.
Any
I
other?
testified that.
Any other LLCs that you created?
I don't recall any other
So you do
LLC.
not recall creating any other LLCs for the victims that you call assistants?
Are they, I don't recall setting up an LLC for a victim, number one.
Do you
Number
recall
two,
setting up an LLC?
if you have an LLC that you want me to ask.
I have the articles of incorporation, but I'm not going
So
to
then
help the
tell
people that
me,
do
tell
it.
me what they are, and I'll answer whether or not I formed them, or had something to do.
I know you
forming
formed them because you're on the document that
Well,
created
then
them.
tell me what they are.
We're going to move on.
See what he does?
Did you take out loans on behalf of the assistants? I'm going to keep calling them assistants.
He keeps doing this. Well, I'll show it to you later. It's like, dude, show it to him now. I mean, you guys have got all the time in the world. It's a 7-hour-long depo, for crying out loud. This is Jeffrey Epstein's personal attorney. He did what he called transactional work for him, i.e., business buying, supplying all of his estates, paying the bills, blah, 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 any number of things, creating LLCs, general counsel kind of work for 23 years. And so now, of course, everybody has the help of hindsight to be able to determine whether or not he did or did not know what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Anyway, so he keeps going ahead with this Min. This is Congressman Min, a Democrat. And he keeps revealing that he is wholly without talent at every juncture. I mean, provide the stuff, man. Provide the stuff. It's so ridiculous. You want to accuse him of beating his wife and, molesting children or whatever it is you're trying to prove. Shouldn't you bring something called evidence and show it to him? And why you are making these connections that perhaps no one else is making, but I know people want to believe that.
But they're not. The only assistant is Leslie Groff.
Did I take out loans on
Take
behalf
out
of
loans using their social security numbers, using their names, using their LLCs that you created on behalf of these assistants.
No.
So it would surprise you to say that some of the victims, some of the assistants, have said that loans were taken out using their social security number and then held over them in addition to the leases that you created that you say you didn't create. So there's this complex immigration fraud scheme that you knew nothing about. There's this complex web of financial control. And then we're just getting to the phone and the computers.
Is there a
So
question here?
I'm
Again?
showing you why it's incredulous that you're sitting here and saying that you had no knowledge of this.
You're actually not showing him anything. You're just making a lot of statements and then just calling him a liar. So if you actually want to show him something, that'd be great, but you haven't yet.
right?
I've asked him under oath whether he created LLCs for the victims, and he's saying that he did not, except for one.
First of all, you don't even say who you're talking about. So you're just
Sorry,
general.
I don't say who I'm talking about because I don't want to use names because they deserve their privacy.
I totally agree. We have been on the same page.
But
on
the
that
American people
whole
also
entire
deserve
time.
accountability.
But you're asking
This is another thing. At the very beginning of this depo, they talk about, I can't remember who's said it specifically, but it could be one of their counsel, who talked about the fact that there are so many people, or so many pages rather, of the record, the Epstein files, that are blank or blacked out or redacted, primarily because of what they can and cannot say about the victims. And so they remove a whole bunch of info because it may be something that could be attached, connected to a victim. And the victims who are out there doing press conferences, by the way, getting paid off and, having some of them having their identification revealed by themselves. Now they just, we can't have anything, we can't talk about them, and we can't talk about anything that may impute anything to them because they may be identified at a later time. That's what a lot of those redactions are in the Epstein files that we're told that, and you can see this is a well, I just want to stand up and give the victims privacy. Well, everybody's doing that. Obviously, that's what's happening here. They have blacked out or blanked out the words where he says names and stuff like that. That's what's been going on. Okay, so let's continue.
if he's done something for somebody and not saying who it is, and he's supposed to remember, you're putting him in a very difficult position.
There's seven people that he knew the names of.
What's 7 people? First of all, I don't know that
Which
7 people
LLCs are
marry
you
each other.
talking
So
about? Which people are you talking about? Tell me.
The congressman has clarified, I believe, that his question applies to the assistants at the time. If there was anyone who had the title or role of assistant being granted a lease or a loan, if that can be the world of which we're working through for the purpose of this question.
That's the thing about the loans, because I don't really understand the question.
Some of the assistants have alleged that loans were taken out in their name for their LLCs that they never signed off on. They never did their taxes. They had nothing to do with these LLCs, and they were operated by you and Con.
Did they allege that I took out the loans?
Your name is on the document.
Did they allege that I took out loans for them?
You signed it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and out the people that
Show me a document, because I don't know what you're talking about.
He won't.
we will follow up.
We'll follow up with you.
I'm not going to.
Once
out
again.
people that want to be want to move on with their life. But we'll see what happens.
I don't care who you are. I don't care how guilty you are.
Mr. Indike,
I mean,
when I asked you-
I know. It's just, it's one of those things where you just, you do appreciate the fact that even if you hate the guy, you hate it when somebody's being dumb, when they're trying to do the gotcha thing and they don't bring the goods. They got no ammo. And so if you're going to bring a gotcha game, then come with the proof. You'll be the hero, Representative Min. You'll be the hero, but you're not. Now you look like an idiot. Now you look like an idiot. And, this guy, there's nothing happening here. There's nothing going to happen to this guy. He's admitted to doing absolutely nothing, which is, of course, is what you want them to do. You want have your Perry Mason moment, that one moment where, I tell you, sir, you were at the scene of the crime. Yeah, well, he was at the scene of all kinds of crimes. He swears he never saw anything. Didn't have a social life with Jeffrey Epstein. Never saw underage women. Thought that the people who are now considered to be victims were his assistants because that's what Jeffrey Epstein called them. So he's either, it's kind of dumb. Like, really? I don't know.
About the storage units you asked.
You know who's dumber than this guy is? That representative, the congressman, who was asking questions a second ago. We continue.
Us to be more specific.
Yes.
Do you recall any storage unit in Palm Beach, Florida?
I have a storage unit, or had a storage unit for the estate in Palm Beach, Florida, when we emptied the house because it was going to be sold. All the contents of the house were taken out of the house and put in the storage unit.
So what years would the
That storage unit
contents be?
doesn't exist anymore.
But what years would the contents of the house have been moved into the storage unit?
Say that again, please?
You said that it was all in furtherance of the estate. I'm just asking a clarifying question.
Yes.
So are we talking 2019 that all or everything from the house would have been moved to the?
2019 or 2020.
Yeah. What about West Palm Beach?
The storage unit in Palm Beach, for the Palm Beach house was in West Palm Beach.
Were there any storage units in New York State?
When the house was being prepared for sale in New York, a moving company also packed the belongings from that house and put them in a storage unit. I don't, sitting here, know where the storage unit was located, whether it was in New York, it may have been on Long Island City, it may have been, across the river in New Jersey, I don't know.
I'm going to save us time and just ask, are you aware of any storage units that were used prior to storage units for the estate?
No.
Somebody just remarked, hey, he was a client. He was a client. Who was a client? Which one was a client? The attorney is not a client of Jeffrey Epstein's, if that's what you mean. But why don't you put your answer to the question in the comments? That'd be great. We always welcome your comments, sharing, putting us on live. Let's do it. And let's continue.
I believe I asked you in a previous hour, but I'm going to ask you again for the sake of these questions. Did Mr. Epstein ever discuss receiving massages with you?
With me, no. In the context of conversations with defense counsel, they discussed them, but he never discussed them with me.
Were you aware that Mr. Epstein was receiving massages?
My understanding, based upon what I learned from defense counsel and the statements that were in the police report, was that there were massages, that some of them ended in sexual conduct, and that some of them involved underage people, that Epstein claimed he didn't know that they were underage, was adamant about it. There was a lie detector test in substance that said that. And again, the statement suggested there was no, or indicated there was no force, no coercion.
After Mr. Epstein's incarceration, are you aware of whether he continued to receive massages?
No, I'm not aware.
At this time, I'd like to introduce, will be marked as Majority Exhibit 5. And this is base number EFTA 326543, and it is an itinerary email from April 13th, 2016.
Okay.
Mr. Indike, the sender, Bebe Abdu,
Yep,
are you familiar with her?
I am.
Who is she?
She was my assistant. And at times, when Epstein's assistants were not available, I think in particular Leslie, Dee would fill in for Leslie. Her office was down the hall from mine.
When did Bebe start,
Her name is
or
Dee.
Dee start employment with you?
I'm not sure. Somewhere around the mid 2000, mid 2010s, maybe 2014, 15, around there.
And you mentioned that you would fill in for the
She would fill in.
assistants for Mr. Epstein. Did Mr. Epstein direct you to hire her?
No. I interviewed her, got her name from, I think, Indeed, or one of those job search places. She had previously worked for a law firm.
Now, I want to direct your attention just to the April 15th, 2016, and it references a Thai massage course. Was it typical that, actually, let me back up. Who do you understand this itinerary to be prepared for?
I don't have an understanding of who it's prepared for. It's sent to BB.
Would you presume that it was for Mr. Epstein?
It seems like, that seems like that's right, yeah.
It appears that your legal assistant had a role in scheduling massage courses. Would you disagree with that characterization?
It would surprise me if that were true. This looks to me to be simply acknowledging as a reminder to him that this was scheduled. It's not something I ever received. And it doesn't indicate that she prepared it for him.
This is in 2016 after Mr. Epstein's incarceration, which was based on inappropriate conduct that was a result of massages. Would this strike you as unusual or concerning?
Inappropriate conduct with underage women, right? Yeah, knowing what I know now, yes, of course, this is disconcerting.
Who else worked at DKI?
As I said, Leslie Groff worked for me for some time when Epstein was in jail.
And during the minorities hour, you talked about performing legal work for that related to the Wexners. Did you ever perform legal work for Leon Black?
Some,
What was your relationship with Leon Black?
only through Mr. Epstein.
What was the nature of the work you did for Mr. Black?
Mr. Epstein did tax planning and estate planning for him, and the transactional work that I did was an offshoot of that work.
Did you have any interactions with Mr. Black outside of the work that you did for him?
No, I did not.
Jeffrey Epstein's attorney, personal attorney for 23 years, deposed this week, and it was just released. Prior to coming on the air, there was no transcript whatsoever. So we're going through the latter part of this deposition, which is almost 7 hours in length. And so we're not doing that whole thing. But what we are doing is we're doing, I think, the last meatiest part of it, and then we'll go back to a few other things that I thought were either amusing or helpful. And after we get through this, but it's a slog, baby. It's a slog. Oh, hello there.
we discussed Evie previously, but was she on an employer-sponsored visa?
Who?
Evie?
No, Evie was,
Let's go through all his notes. Which questions haven't been answered yet? Where's the follow-up question?
During the previous hour, it was mentioned that there was a joint defense agreement. Can you elaborate on what that is?
I believe that was referring to the agreement among all of the defense counsel in connection with the investigation and negotiation of, Mr. Epstein's issues in Florida.
We've discussed Mr. Epstein's arrest in July of 2006, but I want to make sure the record is clear. Following his arrest, did you have any discussions with Mr. Epstein related to his arrest?
Any discussions that I would have had would have been amongst counsel in relation to some of the civil claims that I had with him.
So it's a none, yeah.
But it would have been in a joint defense context.
Was Epstein present?
There were a number of those conversations. Yes, I would assume, I can't tell you how many, but I assume he was present.
Did Mr. Epstein ever discuss the allegations with you?
No. And there was no discussion of the allegations. It was, the discussion centered on the incorrectness of other people's statements.
He makes this point quite often. Oh, I hear him. And by that, I mean, he talks about how he believed Jeffrey Epstein wasn't guilty, he says, because there was so much bad information out there that he couldn't believe that it could possibly be true. Because, for example, he mentions a couple of times how a factoid that came out, which was incorrect, was that in an effort to go through all of his trash, there was a sex toy found in the trash. And so the Palm Beach police decided to call it a sex toy found in the trash. And I'm not saying whether it's true or not, except that he's just said, look, it was a salad implement from the kitchen, okay? That was not a sex toy. And so it was examples like this he gave that telegraphed to him that this was just, there are some crazy prosecutors going out there and not being like Congressman Min, for example, who are not being ethical. I know he's Jeffrey Epstein's attorney. I mean, speaking of ethical, but there you go.
Mr. Endyke, with the benefit of hindsight, were there things you witnessed or observed about Mr. Epstein that could have suggested he was trafficking and sexually abusing young women and girls?
I mean, at what period of time?
During the entirety of your relationship?
Listen,
No. I had no knowledge of any allegations before 2006. And after 2006, when he ultimately went to jail and was back, my understanding was that the issue was underage people, sex with underage people. My understanding was that it was limited to Florida. And when I was in New York, which is where I spent my time, I never saw any underage people. I never saw any sexual activity. Nobody ever complained to me about sexual activity. I had no reason to believe that there was engaging in sexual activity, and frankly, given the amount of scrutiny that Epstein was under, I didn't believe he would do something like that, particularly after he told me he wasn't going to be in that position again. He was, by all accounts, a very smart man. I couldn't imagine he would do anything to put himself back in that position again. So no, there's nothing that I saw that would lead me to believe that he was engaging in misconduct.
And you've discussed at length the cash that was withdrawn that I believe you had a role in retrospect. Would that have been something that should have raised concerns?
Not with the size of his household, not with all of the things that was needed for that cash. I mean, the island alone, they were buying tools and supplies and furniture and all manner of things, food. They had construction workers on the island. Pools were breaking down all the time. They had machine shops. They needed lubricating supplies for the machine shop. You know, any number of things like that. You know, given the size and scope of his households and the number of people involved and the fact that there wasn't a lot of credit cards available at the time,
That's
because
another one.
banks were basically shutting him down that way. No, the cash that was being asked from me seemed to be for legitimate purposes, and I had no reason to think that they weren't for illegitimate purposes.
Did you also handle his taxes?
No,
Did you ever review his tax returns?
I reviewed his tax return. The answer is no, not while they were being done. In connection with the estate, I reviewed the tax return.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars were given every year out in cash. I mean, technically, you have to file a 1099 if you exceed $600 in a year for services. So, I mean, that's not.
Are you aware that 1099s were not filed?
We'll look into that and get back to you.
Okay.
Again.
But that's not my role. That wasn't what I did.
You're going to make an allegation. You're trying to smear Jeffrey Epstein's attorney, which you really feel like this should be easy because, of course, he's guilty because he's Jeffrey Epstein's attorney. Okay. Even if you think that, Congressman, you still have to bring the proof with you. You're making an allegation. You say that aren't there 1099 forms that would be issued for that or filed for that, giving out the money because he's debanked. And so this guy's getting money, cash for Jeffrey Epstein. And Mr. Min, the congressman, doesn't bring the evidence again. I mean, dude, is there not a 1099 for the years that we're talking about that was filed for all the payment for Jeffrey Epstein's behalf? Well, I mean, do you know that? Oh, you don't? Well, okay. Could you? I know you could ask the question, but could you please not sound so stupid when you ask, and get the answer that you deserve, which is, well, I don't know. Are there no 1099s done for that? Which was his reply.
I believe in previous hour, you were asked questions related to visits to the Palm Beach jail while he was incarcerated.
Yes.
What were the purpose of these visits?
I think I explained previously, but I'll say it again. While he was in jail, there were households that were running. There were projects that were going on Little St. James.
Pedophile Island.
I was handling lots of those kind of projects and lots of those kind of transactions. And I would go to him and report to him on the status. He would give me requests to take care of those types of projects, and I would implement those requests and report back to him.
Did you provide Epstein with cash during these visits?
In jail?
Correct.
No.
Did you ever bring any other items or packages to Mr. Epstein while he was incarcerated?
There was, when he first went into jail, I'd never been to jail before. So when he first went to jail, I believe I had a muffin that somebody wanted me to give him. And maybe a sweatshirt. I'm not sure if I had this, if it was somebody gave me to give him the sweatshirt. But I believe I brought that in and that was something that I brought in.
Did he ever ask you to deliver money or property to anyone outside of jail?
No. Other than in the context of a transaction that we're working, but not in the context of anything illicit or improper.
During the committee's investigation, we've been interested in the circumstances surrounding the non-prosecution agreement in 2008 and spoke with Alexander Acosta this past summer.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any role in the 2008 non-prosecution agreement?
Very, very minimal role. I looked at it once and I looked at some of the language and made a suggestion about some of the language. I don't remember exactly which one.
Did you settle victims' claims associated with the crimes pre-2008?
Did I settle the claims?
Were there dozens of victims that were underage that ended up suing Epstein or the estate, and did you settle those claims?
I don't know the number of people that were underage, but there was a list of people that the government provided, and I believe there were a number of those people that filed claims against Epstein, and those claims were ultimately settled. Yes,
Were those settled in 2009-10, or were they settled post-death?
2009 and 10.
Okay. So you, in fact, did have to get somewhat involved in his alleged criminal activity prior to that to settle the claims.
I wasn't involved in his criminal activity.
Well, you had to
That's a
get involved, you had to
mischaracterization.
understand the depths of it because you had to settle the claim on behalf of the state.
So that we're clear, people settle claims for all kinds of reasons, including the cost of litigating, the time spent litigating, how much it interferes with your current business.
So wait, did he go to jail because he didn't do anything wrong?
I didn't say that.
Okay, so he did something wrong and he settled a claim.
Oh, brother.
You're saying he didn't.
What an ass.
No,
hat.
I'm not saying that, and you're putting words into my mouth, and it's actually unfair. What I'm saying is, on a case by case basis, you can look at a settlement and see whether or not the claims in those cases have merit or they don't have merit. And while I will never be in a position, I will never want to be put to the task of saying that any particular woman who's claiming abuse wasn't abused, I won't do that. I will say that there were facts that came to light during the defense counsel's investigation of many of these claims, which suggested that some of these allegations in these claims were not accurate. So which claims were true, which claims were not true, I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't in Florida. I don't know what was true or was not true.
But you were involved in settlements.
But let me finish what I was saying, please. What I have said is that now it's clear that there was misconduct. Okay? I also was clear that when he was in jail and he looked devastated and told me he wasn't ever going to be in that position again, and told me he didn't know that there were people that were underage, and said this was never going to happen again, I believed him. And I told you in my opening statement that that was a mistake. And I do feel horrible about that. Had I known that he was doing it, I would have walked away. But in the context of all of the information that was provided, which suggests that a lot of what was being said was not true, and a lot of what was being claimed about happened in the past, after he had gone to jail and after he said he wasn't going to do it again, I didn't have a reason to believe after he got out that he was doing it again.
I started out, the first question asked was about this, because in your opening statement, you said, I made the mistake of believing Mr. Epstein that he would not again commit a crime. He has never been indicted, charged. I don't even know if he's been investigated for anything after 2009. I mean, the indictment in 2019 was 2002, 2005. So what criminal activity are you aware of that occurred after he got out of prison that violated your trust? Like that is what you're talking about here.
When he died, and it precipitated kind of a flow of people coming and making claims against Epstein. And there were lots of people that made claims against Epstein. And there were lots of people that went to the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund to make claims against Epstein. With that benefit, and as you said, how could I possibly say that nothing happened with that number of claims out there? And given that, that's what I was talking about.
So
I don't know what's true, what's not true, but I know there's stuff there.
What are the crimes that have been alleged are sex assault, are sex trafficking, human trafficking? What else is on the list?
I don't know if the crimes are sex trafficking or human trafficking. What I know is that people claimed that he abused them, he sexually abused them. There were claims, I believe, in some of the complaints that were filed after he died about rape. Those are the claims that I did not know about.
How many of the victims that have made claims and have recovered from the different funds post 2008 did you interact with on a regular basis in your capacity as his lawyer?
A very small minority of them.
Dozen?
The only people that I would have interacted with were people who were
Ostensibly assistants.
ostensibly assistants.
You had mentioned that your role with the non-prosecution agreement was related to making a single suggestion, is that right?
Reviewing the agreement for language, and I don't remember specifically what the language was, but I was one of, I wasn't a criminal attorney. There were criminal attorneys like Roy Black and Billy Sanchez and people who were celebrated criminal counsel that were looking this thing over. So my input was marginal at best.
What suggestion did you make?
I don't recall. It was a linguistic one.
For the record, did it have anything to do with those identified to be co-conspirators?
With the language of that, yeah. I think maybe it did, yeah.
Did it have, in relation to the co-conspirators, did it have to do with creating a list of individuals who would be protected as co-conspirators?
No.
It's been alleged repeatedly that Mr. Epstein used his influence, his connections to powerful figures to curry favor and receive the non-prosecution agreement. Is there anything that, as far as the circumstances surrounding the non-prosecution agreement, that would be concerning in that regard?
I don't think so, because my view of the non-prosecution agreement, although based upon what the positions laid out by defense counsel, was probably different than other people. The non-prosecution agreement was based upon attempts to charge Epstein for what the defense counsel were telling the government were state crimes, and what the defense counsel was saying at the time was that the crimes that were actually testified to the crimes, the actions that were actually testified to were activities which weren't what was according to the defense counsel, weren't what was intended by the sex trafficking statutes. And so my understanding subsequently came that after they reached this agreement, which none of the defense counsel was satisfied with, that even after they reached the agreement, they were fighting it with Acosta's office a lot. They explained that they went back and talked about how the record was defective. They went back and talked about how the petite policy should make it so that the federal government doesn't get involved in this case. They mentioned the fact that there was a state sex crime prosecutor that made a determination, that there was a grand jury convened that had a determination, and that the federal government shouldn't be involved in this. And again, listed why the statutes that were being cited by the government were not intended to be used in this way. And I think, based on what I recall Acosta saying, was that Acosta wanted to get something out of this. He was concerned that maybe
Acosta is the Florida Fed, the U.S. attorney in Palm Beach County or Southern Florida. And also to just note that he was Trump's, was he the Commerce Secretary of the first Trump administration, 45? So he served in the administration, and he was hectored out of there because he had Epstein connections. He did this what everyone considers to be a really dumb prosecution, and giving Epstein the ability to just basically go to jail during the day or be locked up during the day, during which time he worked. I mean, it was a pretty much of a nothing burger sentence. And so this guy's is his personal attorney. And for those of us just getting up to speed here, and he's his personal attorney for 23 years. He also was never talked to, investigated, and or questioned by federal authorities, just like the accountant who's recently also been deposed. And so they think there was a huge flaw in that. It sounds like, I don't know if they did they make overtures to talk with him? Don't know. I have to believe they did. And if they didn't, why not? Or did they just assume that they would be attorney-client privilege and they wouldn't be able to find out anything from them, which is probably the case. You know, when somebody says that they're going to, for example, in congressional testimony, which this is, by the way, this is House Oversight Committee doing these depositions to find out to what extent the feds really looked into the Epstein matter and why how he killed himself in prison, or he was murdered in prison, or whomever. They're also going to, they've also pursued some of the people who were the people who saw him that day, who are at the jail. I guess it is a jail, because he was awaiting sentencing. Okay. Or trial, actually. So, here we are. And we'll continue. This is the latter couple hours portion of the depo, which is nearly 7 hours long. And the reason I'm doing that, for those of you who don't know, it's because most of the questions that are contained here were also previously asked. So there's not a lot of new there. When we go back, when we're done here, we'll go back. And there's a special one I want you to hear, because there's a question about Donald Trump and a victim that they shared and all sorts of things that have already been asked and answered. And, there's no there. But I know that there are some real Donald Trump haters out there, and they're epically, ardently hoping that he's a kid diddler. And, thing is that there are a lot of things that you can dislike Donald Trump over. You don't like his manner. You don't like his how he comports himself. You don't like his lack of manners. All sorts of things you could do and judge him on and hate him for. Okay, you can hate him. for having 3 wives or something. But you can't hate him for being a kid diddler because there's no evidence to suggest that he is. Nevertheless, I'll take you to the spot in the depo in just a bit where he's asked, the attorney is asked about this and about the additional allegations that have been long since years and years and years ago, that they imploded because there was no there there. Okay, so let us continue with the attorney for Jeffrey Epstein, Darren Indyke, and he is the general counsel essentially for Jeffrey Epstein.
Epstein would be able to beat the charges and wanted to make sure that Epstein actually did jail time, and also wanted to make sure that Epstein had to plead to an offense that would require him to register as a sex offender. And registration as a sex offender is a lifetime. And those were his goals. And the defense counsel was not particularly crazy about what his goals were, given what the state outcome was. And Acosta, as I understood, and were challenging the deal that was made. So the defense counsel didn't look at this as a sweetheart deal, and that's the view that I had based upon what they were saying to me.
Outside of Acosta, are you aware of any efforts to talk to his superiors or any other government officials related to the claims against Mr. Epstein?
No.
Did you have any role in negotiating Mr. Epstein's work release?
No.
During the previous hour, the minority asked you about the Florida Science Foundation, is that right?
Yes.
And I believe that you had mentioned that its purpose was in the furtherance of scientific endeavors. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes.
What specific scientific endeavors?
It's really, that's something that Epstein was, as I think has been reported, Epstein was very interested in scientific and academic research in a lot of different areas. It wasn't something that I did much in the way of, but the idea was to search out and find these types of projects that were worthy of funding and then fund them. I can't tell you the specific kinds.
Do you know any entities or individuals that he would have interacted with in the furtherance of the foundation?
A couple of universities, I think, have been reported. I think Princeton was one. There was one in the Southwest. I can't remember where. Harvard was one. Stuff about the brain that he was looking at. There's some academic research that I wasn't really familiar with that I know that he was looking at as well.
And when he was on this work release, did you have meetings with him at the office that they were working out of?
In the same way that I would go to his house in New York, when he was on work release, I would travel to Florida and meet with him at the office to report on the status of things that I was working on for him.
And for the record, because I don't believe it was asked, where was this office?
I think it was stated by someone that it was on 250 Australian Avenue or South Australian Avenue.
Did you ever, when you visited him at this office, did you ever see young women or girls?
I saw people that I understood to be his assistants at the office.
Did you have to deal with any issues associated with him registering as a sex offender relative to his different properties? In South County, you can't live in like most places. So did he have any issues with that?
Ask me again, please.
Once he was registered as a sex offender, he still already owned all these properties. In South Carolina, you're not allowed to live a lot of places, parks, schools, just there's no-go zones. Did you have to deal with any of that associated with his existing properties?
I did a little bit, sure, but usually in conjunction with criminal counsel. Obviously, we had to make sure that where he lived in Palm Beach was clear, and as I understood it, then it was. The New Mexico ranch was isolated from other places. The island was isolated from other places, so that wasn't it. And New York also, from what I understood, was not was not a problem.
Are you aware of whether Epstein sexually abused young women or girls while on work release?
I was not aware at the time that he was doing anything like that. And as I said, had somebody even mentioned that to me, I would have been surprised by it, given that there was a sheriff's deputy sitting at the reception desk every time that I went to that office. And the reception desk was, maybe the distance from those chairs over there from the office.
He's having sex with apparently younger people in his office when he's on work release, and there's a sheriff's deputy sitting there, not in his office, but outside of his office. This is insanity. This is this is crazy. I guess I'm not surprised, but there you are.
From where the offices were. So that would have surprised me. I have since learned after his death, I think it was after his death, that there were allegations made that he was having sex with somebody in his office.
To be clear, Mr. Epstein did have privacy at this office.
The office had a door. It did.
Did you ever see any woman there that you later identified to be a victim?
That I later identified.
That was later identified to
That
be a
later
victim.
claimed to be a victim? Yes.
Who?
Is it okay that we say it? I believe.
Yeah, see, there's one of the ones where they have to redact the person's
How
name.
many times did you
he
see
said.
her there?
And they block it out so you can't read their lips, obviously.
Do you recall having any conversations related to her with Mr. Epstein
There?
at any time?
Nothing remarkable. No.
Did Bruce Reinhardt have an office at the Florida Science Foundation?
Bruce Reinhardt did not have an office at Florida Science Foundation. He did, however, have an office in the building. He was an attorney at a firm called, I think, Atterbury Goldberger. I think was the name of the firm.
Did he do any work for Mr. Epstein?
I don't recall if he did any work for Mr. Epstein, but there were, I believe he did some representation of people who were associated with Mr. Epstein, relating to claims that were made against Mr. Epstein, I think.
Did you ever have conversations with Mr. Epstein about his requirement to register as a sex offender?
Yes.
What were the nature of those conversations?
Where he had to register, or where he was going, any number of different things.
Where did he have to register? What state?
He registered in New York. He registered in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
I'm going to stop here. A lot of comments about his jacket. And the fact that he looks like Mark Hamill, which is so spot on. Thank you so much to the commenter who mentioned both the jacket and him forgetting to take his hanger out of the back of it and his absolute likeness to Mark Hamill of Star Wars fame. And, we're so used to seeing people on television who actually know what to do with a jacket. For example, when I'm on TV and if I'm wearing a jacket, you have to sit on the bottom of the jacket. That's what everybody does. That's all the anchors do that. They just sit on the bottom of the jacket to make sure it's all smooth. Like if you go to a dinner party or something like that and you are required to wear a jacket, it could happen. You never know. Sit on the bottom of the jacket. It always makes you look better and more presentable and makes you look better in photos. So anyway, so he did not get the memo, which tells me that he didn't get any of the media training that he needed to get. I'm just making light. Now, does anybody believe a word he's saying? I just want to know, do you believe what he's saying? Can you think of a circumstance in which this guy could exist where he did not know that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't, being a kid diddler? And, or a teen diddler, I guess is more accurate. So, which doesn't make it better. It just makes it, it understandable if you don't know how old they are. They say they're 16, 17, 18. You never know. And I'm not, believe me, I know victims. Don't give me any crap. But here we go. A little bit more with this guy. And let's see, we are at 5:19. Hold on just a second. 5 hours, 19. I had to check my logging. 5:19. Where are we coming into now? Right. The sex in the office. And then 5:23 is the last discussion with Epstein. And then we're going to go back to hour number 1. No, into hour number 2. At 1:54, where Congressman Min is just beclowns himself. Okay, so let's continue here. Let's find out if there's anything interesting.
He registered in Florida. Went to the registry in New Mexico, but was told for some reason that registration wasn't required. Based upon something with the statute, I think.
I'm not familiar with it. I would assume it was primary place of residence, but that's not the case. It's if you stay somewhere for longer than a certain period of time.
It does convert it to a primary. He never stayed in Mexico very long. And in New York, he wasn't there long enough, apparently. There was a specific statement made by whoever was handling the registry that he wasn't required to register that as a primary residence.
Are you aware that Leslie Groff and Bella Klein facilitated cell phones, computers for the survivors, victims that you have referred to as assistants?
The word facilitated.
Are you aware that they gave them cell phones and computers?
For assistance, you mean?
We now know that they weren't assistants, but
Well,
yes.
I knew them as assistants.
Okay.
Okay.
Are
And
you aware that Jeffrey Epstein would use that to monitor their actions?
no,
Would it surprise you to know that he monitored their cell phone communications to control them?
now, after what we know now, no, I mean, that would not surprise me.
Are we about done? I guess I just have one question. It
Okay,
seems
here
like
we-
working for him was a huge pain in the ass. I mean, at some point were you like, maybe I should do something else?
I was compensated very well, and I worked very hard to do.
Dude, you're not in an interrogation room at a cop shop trying to get some guy to talk to you. You're in a more professional setting, and the guy is surrounded by lawyers. Comport yourself accordingly and bring up some excellent questions that you can support. This is not the time for, hey, he seemed like a big pain in the ass to work for.
The things I did for him, and those things I did were all business transactional work experiences that I wouldn't get necessarily anywhere else. I was working with people who were billionaires on transactions that were, really interesting transactions. So, yes.
Do you think this is gonna be over?
Let me just finish what I was saying. Sir, are you a lawyer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that when you become a lawyer, you're destined to work long hours for demanding people.
He's such a baby, not this
I'm in
dude.
Congress, it's even worse.
So I'm sure that's true. So given that was the case,
Congressman Min is a needy, silly man. That's it. That's all. That's it. That's the tweet. Honestly, we continue.
for me, why not? I was there. And I know, you have your own views on that, but, and I know you want to try to hold me accountable. But
I think we all have roles to play. I'm just
I understand that.
following the evidence.
It's about me.
understand that. Well, you're following your spin on the evidence, not really the evidence.
Not my spin.
It is your spin on the evidence, because the evidence makes it pretty clear that nobody said anything to me, that I never saw anything, nobody alleged that I saw anything.
Time will tell.
All right, I'm glad you guys are having a conversation now, but I don't think there's questions pending.
We will go off the record.
Somebody asks, hey, what he needed to know was not asked. What was Epstein's favorite ice cream? Had it been the Biden administration, we would have been regaled with all kinds of questions about his flavor, but sadly,
Go back.
that's not the case.
Mr. Van Dyke, I wanted to return, if I could, to the topic of the conversation you had with Jeffrey Epstein 2 days before his death. And for the moment, I'm not going to ask you to tell me about the substance of that conversation, but I would like to understand some of the details surrounding that communication. To begin with, where did it happen? Was this over the phone or in person?
No, it was at the jail.
It's at the prison. And how long did the conversation last?
I don't remember how long I was there. It was there was other attorneys and a paralegal there at the time.
So this conversation involved more than just you and Mr. Epstein. There were other people present,
Yes,
other attorneys,
yes.
and anyone else?
No, just the attorneys. Sorry, I said a paralegal too. I believe there was
One
I
paralegal.
think there's a paralegal there too.
Who were the other attorneys?
These were might have been Michael Miller from Steptoe. There may have been another Steptoe attorney there, and Epstein had some other lawyers who were new to the thing. I don't know if Marty Weinberg was there or not. I don't remember them. But there was more. There were some kind of associate level attorneys from criminal firms there too. I just don't remember who they were.
Okay, and other than the one paralegal you mentioned, were there any non-attorneys present?
No.
And I understood you to say that you don't have a specific recollection of how long you were in the prison. Different question, do you have a recollection of how long the conversation with Mr. Epstein lasted?
They were just continuing conversations about items that were of relevance at the time. So there was not like a specific conversation. It was talk, stop.
So we're talking about a meeting.
Yeah.
And not to belabor the point, but the duration of the meeting, an hour, more or less?
Maybe an hour, maybe two,
Okay.
possibly.
And again, without getting into the substance of the communications, what were the topics that were discussed?
Bail. Requirements. Well, so this is not my thing. So some requirements, procedural requirements with respect to what needed to happen there. I'm not exactly sure what the procedural requirements were, but they were related procedural requirements. There was
When you say procedural requirements, were those legal in nature?
Yes, in connection with the criminal case. Trying to think what else.
I bring up the Biden administration often because I always appreciate the hypocrisy on the part of the left and how all of a sudden certain things are horrible and yet completely going unanswered and or unremarked upon during the Biden administration. So I enjoy that. I do.
I believe roles of the different attorneys. That's what comes to mind.
And again, just so we're all clear, are you asserting the attorney-client privilege as to the entirety of the communications that took place during that meeting?
I think I have to, because I can't remember specifically things that were said, and so I think the answer is yes, I have to.
And again, just so we're all clear, is that based on your participation in the legal representation of Mr. Epstein in his criminal case?
Yes.
And any other legal representations that come into play during that meeting, or is that the only one?
I would think during that meeting there was probably some kind of status of projects that were going on. So I would imagine that came up as well.
I appreciate that, Mr. Rende. I'm going to shift back to yet another topic that we discussed earlier,
Okay.
and that is the hard drives that you learned through your communications with the Joint Defense Group that had ended up in the possession of private investigators.
Okay.
Just some follow-up questions to make sure we have a complete understanding with respect to that issue. So to begin with, I understand from your testimony during the previous round that the private investigator you were referring to was the firm Riley Corrali. Is that correct?
I think so, though I'm not 100% certain, but that's a name that stands out of my head.
To your knowledge, were there any other private investigators involved?
Based upon what,
Remember, this is an issue because they believe that Jeffrey Epstein was tipped off before his house was tossed by the cops. And so in so doing and knowing that, they got rid of evidence. That's their allegation. And they're asking him about it. That's why that's germane and important.
based upon what I heard today, Roadruck may have been involved.
And to your knowledge, how did the private investigators obtain those hard drives?
I don't know. I have no personal knowledge of it.
And then given over to the PIs.
When, to your understanding, did they obtain the hard drives?
Again, I don't know.
And at whose direction, to your understanding, did they obtain the hard drives?
Also, I don't know.
Anyone else, to your knowledge, knew that the investigators had the hard drives?
Other lawyers in the defense group.
Keep your voice up.
Sorry, other lawyers in the defense group.
And how many hard drives in total did the private investigators have?
I don't know.
And to your knowledge, were those hard drives ever provided to law enforcement?
I don't know. But my sense is that no, that they weren't.
Were the contents of the hard drives ever described to you?
No.
As you sit here today, do you have an understanding of what they contain?
No.
I also asked you earlier this afternoon about the removal of video equipment from any Epstein home in advance of a search warrant being executed. Just wanted to be even more specific and ask you the same question with respect to audio equipment.
Did you ask?
Sure.
So I know it. So I know what the question is. Please.
Yes. Do you have any knowledge of any audio equipment being removed from any of Mr. Epstein's properties prior to the execution of a search warrant?
I have no personal knowledge of it, and I don't have any other knowledge.
Do you have any personal knowledge or other kind of knowledge of any other type of electronic equipment being removed from any residence of Jeffrey Epstein prior to the execution of a search warrant?
Electronic equipment?
So we've talked hard drives, we've talked video equipment, audio equipment, any other
capable of like understanding conversations or.
I'm casting a wide net, so really any type of electronic equipment, anything that's electronically operable.
I'm casting a wide net.
It could be a printer or anything. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any knowledge of it, but I don't want to like give a broad. I don't know because maybe that somebody took out a washing machine or something. I don't know, but I don't like answering questions for stuff that I don't know what the universe is that we're talking about.
Yes, it's that broadly defined category that I just described. Any type of electronic equipment. It sounds like your answer is you do not have such knowledge.
Nothing jumps out in my mind. And again, I don't know how far back we're talking. You said before, but are we talking about within what period of time also, because that's also an issue.
Let's say within a year before the search warrant was executed.
Nothing jumps in my mind about that.
And the same question, except as to records of any kind? Do you have any knowledge, whether firsthand or otherwise, that any records of any kind were removed from any of Mr. Epstein's residences prior to the execution of a search warrant?
Nothing to my knowledge. Which is not to say that I don't know. I have no personal knowledge of that. I never heard anything.
Did you ever hear any other person express a belief that any hard drive, video equipment, audio equipment, or other type of electronic equipment had been removed from any of Mr. Epstein's properties prior to the execution of a search warrant?
Other than the hard drives that we've talked about.
Yes.
No.
So the hard drives, to your knowledge, where are they now?
I have no idea.
Did you come to learn which Epstein properties specifically the hard drives were obtained from?
My sense, because it was the Palm Beach investigation that was being talked about, that it was Palm Beach. But
Do you have specific knowledge?
no.
That's because everybody
Did you
compartmentalizes.
ever become aware or
Smart
did you
way to
ever
do it.
hear that the hard drives were withheld from law enforcement?
I believe in the context of the discussions with the U.S. Attorney's Office, there were conversations about hard drives and the U.S. Attorney's Office not having those hard drives
The U.S. Attorney's Office in Florida.
in Florida.
And
I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe I believe that's what I recall.
And when you say the U.S. Attorney's Office did not have the hard drives, was it to your understanding their expectation that they should have received them?
No, there was some discussion back and forth between the defense counsel and them about it.
Just shifting again to the topic of Epstein survivors and the allegations that they have made against Jeffrey Epstein and his estate. Since Mr. Epstein's death, have you had any contact with any women who have made allegations against Jeffrey Epstein?
Personal contact, no. With the exception, I was at a couple of mediations where those people appeared. But beyond that, no.
Have you instructed or engaged anyone else to contact any women who have made allegations concerning Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
Have you engaged any private investigators in connection with allegations of sexual abuse by Jeffrey Epstein?
I have not personally done that. And I can't recall if one of the civil lawyers representing the estate may have. I remember discussions. I don't recall if they actually did so.
And do you recall which lawyer that is?
Maybe Bennett Moskowitz's team in Troutman.
Oskowitz's team and
Bennett Moskowitz's team at Troutman.
thank you.
Yeah.
I think. We have multiple attorneys, so and there's a lot of claims obviously going.
To your knowledge, have any private investigators working on behalf of Jeffrey Epstein or his estate themselves contacted any survivors?
I don't think so, no. And can we go back to the previous question
Uh-oh.
about private investigators? It's just after he died, right?
He's just remembered something.
I believe that, just to amend this a little bit, I believe that prior to his death, or maybe just as he died, there was a private investigator that, in connection with a civil case to find out about the plaintiff, that was retained, and I believe I may have had, I think I did have communications with the private investigator about it.
No!
I think I got communications with the private investigator about it to do some background research.
Who was that private investigator?
I don't remember the name.
And you said the engagement was to provide background research?
Yeah, what do you know about this person? In many instances, we don't know about it. We the co-executive and I, in most instances, we don't know these people.
When you say these people, are you talking about the plaintiffs?
The plaintiffs, yes.
And how did this private investigator go about conducting this background research?
I don't know. I got a report. I think they got a report at some point.
And
So too.
what did the report say?
I think it's privilege number one, but I don't recall off the top of my head.
Did the report contain any indication that this investigator had contacted any Epstein survivors or plaintiffs?
No, I don't think that they would have done that.
To your knowledge, has either this private investigator or any other private investigator conducted surveillance of Epstein survivors or plaintiffs?
I'm trying to remember if the one that I'm talking about did. It's possible. It is possible. But I don't know for sure.
Okay, so this sort of goes along, and this is information that they've already previously asked about for the most part, and so that's why I started toward the end to begin. The end is at the beginning. And so, yeah, and in a couple of minutes, okay, I'm not gonna lie, more than a couple of minutes, because it's a hella long depo. I mean, it's like 7 hours. So we're going to go along a little bit more with this one, and then we're going to go back to the 154 mark, and we're going to, I have to share a couple of things with you, and one of which is that one of the Democrats decided to bring up the 13-year-old who brought the claim or made news, and then all of a sudden went, oh, well, never mind, because 13-year-old girls, yeah, anyway. So that's coming up as well. So it's Trump. So all you guys who are hoping and praying that Donald Trump is a kid diddler, your dream is going to come true, even though it doesn't. Well, the dream is not going to come true that you wish he were a kid diddler, but, or as an essay artist. How about if we call it that? However, you will hear about the, at least asking, and maybe you'll get an answer that you want. Unlikely, but maybe you will. Let's continue going. Here we go.
To your knowledge, have any women who have made allegations of sexual abuse by Jeffrey Epstein been threatened?
No, to my knowledge, no.
To your knowledge, have any women who have made such allegations been pressured in any way not to pursue their allegations?
Not to my knowledge.
If I could return to the topic of an individual you were asked about several rounds ago, and that's Howard Lutnick. The question, I believe, was whether you ever became aware of a relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Howard Lutnick. And as I understand, your answer was you did not know of such a relationship. Is that
Howard Lutnick is the current Trump 47 Commerce Secretary. He was the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and as we heard from the Hillary Depo, as well as knowing what happened on 9/11 and the fact that his organization, which was a financial organization, basically was destroyed by the planes that hit the World Trade Center towers. Anyway, so Howard Lutnick's a billionaire, I think, and he's a very wealthy man, and he is a neighbor, or was a neighbor, of Jeffrey Epstein's at that fancy New York townhouse area. They swapped stories about who was doing the renovation on their houses and who he should use and that sort of thing. And so those are in the Epstein files, which we've gone over before. But kind of interesting. The Democrats most ardently want to bring shame on Howard Lutnick and his family visiting Epstein's Island. And he brought his kids and his wife to Epstein Island to have lunch. And all of a sudden, oh no, he's terrible. We must cancel him and get rid of him. Yeah, maybe in 2016 that might happen. Ain't not happening now. Let's go. Let's continue with the depo of Epstein's attorney, Darren Indyke.
Right.
Up until recently, I had no knowledge other than that Lutnick was a neighbor.
I'm just going to quickly ask the court reporter to mark as exhibits D as in dog. D. An email dated May 28th, 2018.
Somebody brought some evidence. What do you know?
It is a thread between Jeffrey Epstein and an individual with an email address bearing the initials HWL.
Howard Lutnick.
Given that it appears to originate from Cantor Fitzgerald, we believe that to be Howard Lutnick.
Okay.
The message down below from Mr. Epstein reads, "Tell your lawyer that Darren, my lawyer, will contact him." And then the response up above from HWL, "Meeting is tomorrow morning." You are not on this email, but do you have any recollection of meeting with Howard Lutnick's attorney?
No, I have no recollection of meeting with Lutnick's attorney at all. And I don't have a recollection of any instruction to contact a Lutnick lawyer. So if he had said this, I don't recall him ever saying it to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Index, thank you. Just before we go off the record, I'm going to note that based on your responses to my questions regarding your conversation with Mr. Epstein prior to his death, we are no longer seeking a ruling from the chair regarding your meeting with Mr. Epstein. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can go off the record.
Okay, here we go. We're going to skip up. We'll do the last half an hour.
Would have done fewer times, more money, because that's what the accounting department wanted. They wanted money in their petty cash safe. And every couple of weeks, I would get a request, we need more money for the petty cash safe.
That's the money that they want to represent.
By doing so, were you
he paid
actively
the girls.
trying to avoid complying with the Bank Secrecy Act?
Absolutely not. That's just not possible. The limits were imposed by the bank itself, not by me.
I want to go back to the immigration issue.
Okay.
So 2013
Get ready for a stupid question, by the way. This is David Min again.
assistants that we now know are victims living at 301 East 66th or with Mr. Epstein in his house. Two of them, one of them, Karina, and then the other, both of them lived at 301 East 66th Street, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, yes. And
To your knowledge, yes.
now you said that one of them lived at his house, but
It's my understanding Karina lived at his
I don't believe
house.
that's true. I don't believe that's
So you
true.
think they both lived at
Yeah.
301?
Yes, I do.
And was a U.S. citizen?
My understanding was that she was a U.S. citizen, yeah.
And Karina's Belarusian?
I think that's right, yes.
And Mr. Epstein asked you to, well, those people got married,
Correct?
and Mr. Epstein asked you to help Arda Biscardi's apply for Karina's citizenship.
That's not true at all. He didn't ask me to ask Arda Biscardi.
Sorry,
Keep your voice up.
Sorry, that's not true.
did Mr. Epstein ask for you to provide documents to the immigration attorney that was facilitating Karina's citizenship application?
I believe either Karina asked me to provide documents.
They're alleging, the Democrats, and I suppose everybody, if they've got the same facts, that, or surmise, is basically what this is, that Jeffrey Epstein engaged in a very diabolical, and no one has a problem believing that, way in which he dealt with people who worked for him to make them essentially so beholden to him in a sort of Byzantine-like connection. He'd wrap them in the best way to describe it is sort of a web, wherein he brought them allegedly into the country, and then they're talking about this marriage between these women, just to get another person. I have no idea if they were in love or anything like that. This guy doesn't have any opinion on that. He just said they got married. So and apparently it was at the behest of Jeffrey Epstein. But they're alleging that it's an immigration scam. They're bringing in underage and or just prostitutes, of overage, if you will. And so doing that and creating this web, which included getting money, having their immigration status in question, possibly, giving them a job, separate and distinct from the money, and then having a sexual relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So they, in every way, depend on Jeffrey Epstein. This is the allegation.
Keith Taft.
Oh, sorry about that, folks. That's my phone. Anyway, so the deal is that he's trying to control every aspect of their life. Is the allegation? This is the guy who would have done the leases, the LLCs. Everybody that worked for Jeffrey Epstein was in a covered with an LLC. And, well, not everybody, but to the extent that they were, this is the guy who did it, right? Oh, and, sorry, you guys. No. You ever do that where you're trying to turn your phone off and then it decides it's going to activate the emergency thing? It's like, oh, okay. No, don't do that. If somebody shows up from 911, and, just let me know that I don't want to freak you out. That they could. I don't think I activated, but hey, you never know. Okay, so that's the diabolical plan. Min, the congressman from California who's wholly without, has decided that he's going to live, fight, and die and bleed on this hill and all the other things that he thinks will please his constituency to ask in this deposition. So let's continue. I've got another fantastic line of questioning from Min that you will, if you listen carefully, will howl at. But let's continue with his current pretty dumb question. Let's find out what happens.
What documents did you provide at their request?
I believe it was a lease.
Any other, all that you remember is a lease?
That's what I remember.
Did you ever communicate with Mr. Epstein regarding the application for citizenship for Karina?
I believe I did, yeah.
But not at his request. You just updated him on it, or what was the nature of that? He was concerned that his employees, ostensible employees, were
I believe this is some time ago.
13 years. I got you. And then,
I don't remember I want to be helpful, but I don't remember,
that's fine. So then 4 years later, did you file for their divorce?
I didn't file for their divorce, no.
Did you facilitate did you connect them with people that helped them get divorced?
4 years later, as I understand it, had a divorce attorney that filed for the divorce.
How long do you have to be married in order to maintain your citizenship after divorce?
I have no idea.
It's 3 years. Did you provide documents for another couple that got married in 2013?
I believe also a lease.
Any other, who was that?
I believe their last name was.
Okay, and one was a US citizen
Correct,
and one was not.
correct.
And again,
At the request
one of them requested for you
one
to
of them
provide a lease.
requested that I do it, yes.
Okay. I feel like earlier you said that you weren't involved with 301 East 66th Street substantially.
Correct.
You just were a tenant.
I was a tenant. I had office space there.
Why wouldn't they go to a property manager for that?
What do you mean?
If you're not the property manager of the building,
Because
Mr. Epstein didn't own the
Jeffrey had a connection with 301,
okay, so Jeffrey's
which is how they found the building.
Okay, so Jeffrey's brother owned OSA Properties,
I believe he was a principal at OSA Property.
and so,
And I believe Epstein leased space. I just don't know if the space that he leased was those apartments or not.
this is very convoluted. All right, so you were a tenant in 301.
I was a tenant in 301
You were not the property manager.
not the property manager.
Did you control any units other than your own?
No,
So what role did you have in providing a lease for a company that your employer didn't own?
there was a relationship between Jeffrey and 301.
That was actually a decent question.
Did you sign the lease or did somebody else sign the lease?
That was a,
Did you sign it on behalf of 301 or did somebody
No,
from 301 sign it?
I don't have that relationship with 301. No, I did not sign.
Okay, again, this is just confusing because you're not the property manager. Your employer doesn't own the building. And what role did you have in creating a lease for a building that you have no association with?
Well, I never created the lease. I requested the lease. I told you I requested the lease.
Okay, so you requested the lease
Yes,
from the property manager.
from the property manager, yes.
And the purpose of that was to get a lease that had
I was,
two names on it instead of one.
I was requested to get a lease within, that's
By
by.
Karina or, did you give it to the women or did you give it to Arda Biscardi's?
I don't recall. If I would have given it to Arda, I was probably asked to give it to Arda,
By Mr. Epstein or by
By
the women?
by the way.
I'm just gonna circle back to the email, and I wish I had it on me, but
Yeah.
there's an email on the.
you never brought
documents
anything else. Why
that says
would this
from
moment
to
be
you and Khan saying
different?
That he's worried that Arda Biscardi is going to turn on you. What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Did Mr. Epstein ask you to apply for visas for him or any of his people that you refer to as assistants?
No, I don't think he asked me to apply for any visas.
Not to Japan?
I don't think so.
Jeffrey Epstein probably had an immigration lawyer too if he's pulling this scam. And I don't think it would be this guy because he has all different kinds of lawyers. But because as we've found
Real
out, this
quick.
guy doesn't know much.
You just discussed the marriage between Ms. Shuliak and the other victim. Did either one of them ever approach you to ask for assistance in obtaining a divorce?
Yes,
Did you ever advise either one of them to not get a divorce?
No, I never advised anybody not to get a divorce. Came to me and said, would I help her get a divorce? I told her that, one, I wasn't a matrimonial attorney, so that's not something I ordinarily did. And I also expressed concern to her, based upon my understanding that she had just filed some kind of an application for Karina Shuliak, that what I knew about divorce in New York was that you are either filing for something called irreconcilable differences or abandonment or something like that. And that seemed to me that would be inconsistent with statements that she likely made to the government in the application. And I expressed concern about doing that and cautioned her about it. Yes, that's what I said to her.
And now I just want to briefly focus generally. Did any victims, individuals identified as victims, ever come to you to ask for help as it related to being sexually abused by Mr. Epstein?
No.
The 301 is the building that Epstein had a connection to, and he housed people there. He bought this guy a home, sort of a bridge loan kind of a situation, and then he actually got screwed on one of those deals. Actually, this dude did, and then the other thing is that he would give people who worked for him, part of the web, a home. Like, I can't leave. I got a house here. I can't leave. I've got apparently a wife, and I have to keep up, even if it's an immigration scam. Maybe they were in love. Who knows? Another thing is that, so arranged marriages is what they're trying to say. Well, if you're going to have arranged marriages, how about, is there more than one that you're going to bring up? Or is it just these two? Just this allegedly lesbian couple? What's going on there? Do we think Jeffrey Epstein's weird? Is he above doing any arranged marriages? No. He's not. Because he's a wackadoodle-doo. Like a fox. Has anybody found out, is he an autodidact? Was Jeffrey Epstein an autodidact? I know he's really super smart and all that jazz. But he was doing some pretty highbrow financial instrument kind of stuff after working at Bear Stearns for just, a short time. So he picks up on this stuff pretty well. So if he's not a spy, if he's not, the bribe happy individual that some would like to believe, then is he just a off the charts smart dude and self-taught? Okay, just a question.
On July 6th of 2019, Mr. Epstein was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. When did you become aware of those charges?
At some point, so Epstein was seized at the airport. I'm not sure if it was Newark or Teterboro, but he was seized at the airport. And at some point after that, I forget who told me, but I was told that he was arrested.
And we discussed your role during the 2008 prosecution. Did you have any role whatsoever as it related to his arrest in 2019?
I went to the jail a couple of times. I understood that he needed his criminal defense team, and I think I contacted them. And I think I contacted them about it. I believe I did some kind of research or legwork in connection with the bail application. I don't know, and then participated in meetings with defense counsel.
During the previous hour, I believe the minority had asked you if you ever had any contact with victims. I believe you answered no. Is that right?
That's, I think so, yes. I think that's when you say contact other than assistance, right?
So for the record, you never told victims not to contact or speak with law enforcement. Is that right?
So the answer is yes, I never told anybody not to speak with law enforcement. I remember one or two occasions, and I don't know when, and I think this was in the early investigation, not the later investigation, that there were people who were concerned that law enforcement was calling them, and the defense counsel, who they didn't know, asked me to call them and tell them that they could have a lawyer if they want, that they didn't have to speak to them if they didn't want.
Which is
I never
true.
told them not to speak to one. I simply related the statement from the defense counsel that if they wanted a lawyer, they could have one provided.
We will briefly go off the record.
Excuse me. I want to go off the record here. Why would they call
We'll go
him?
back on the record.
Okay, not yet. I'm not ready for you. Why would they go to this guy to convey a message from the defense attorneys that if they wanted to have an attorney, they could have one? I'm just curious why they would have to go through homeboy here, Mr. Indike. It's just strange to me. But as we continue, should I go to the beginning?
So I just want to finish that answer. So and it's been a long time now, but I believe I would have said and did say something to the effect that you don't have to speak to them without a lawyer present, and if you want, counsel will be provided for you. And the reason that I was asked to do that is that people were expressing fear about having to talk to law enforcement. They didn't know, they'd never done it before, and it scared them, and they wanted to know.
Quick question. Do you know the name Ramsey Elkholy?
No, I don't think,
There's allegations that Epstein paid him to recruit women. But if you don't know the name,
I don't know that.
Mr. Indike, do you believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
It's a tough question to answer. On the one hand, the answer is I don't know, really. At the end of the day, I just don't know. I could see reason yes, and I could see reason no.
Do you have concerns that he didn't kill himself?
I really don't know.
Did he appear suicidal when you met with him?
No,
Did he ever say he was depressed?
no. It's not something he would have said to me anyway.
What is the 1953 trust?
It is what's colloquially called a pour-over trust from the will. It's the trust after the will is completely probated and all claims are settled. If there are assets and funds left over, they would be transferred over from the estate to that trust.
That's how he's going to get paid for all this.
And
$50
why was the
million.
1953 trust created?
It is to my understanding, because I am not a trust and estates lawyer per se, but to my understanding, as a generalist, many times you, because you don't want your dispositions to be a matter of public speculation, you put everything in the estate over to a trust, which is then administered outside probate.
When did you learn that you'd be a co-executor of the 1953 trust?
So then I'm trying to remember, I think the 1952 trust was an amendment to an existing trust. So if you're asking about the 1953 trust amendment, that would have been at some point while he was in jail that I was there with him and his other attorneys. If you're talking about the prior trust, that the name was changed to that trust, if in fact I'm remembering correctly, it would have been when that trust was drafted and I was appointed as a trustee of that trust.
What was the discussion around how much you would receive as a co-executor of the trust?
As a co-executor, there was no discussion. There was simply, this is what it provided.
So you have no understanding of how $50 million was decided?
I think I tried to answer this question before. The
Like
trust
twice.
itself, the estate document itself provides for a relatively, it's not small amount, but a relatively small amount, $250,000 to each of the executors. Normally, an estate of this size, if it were being probated, say, for example, in New York or in Florida, would as a base amount get, 10, a large percentage, tens of millions of the large amount of the estate. And if it's more complex of an estate and requires more time, there would be applications for more money to be paid for that. In this case, that wasn't the case. There was one payment to be made of $250,000 to each of the executors to be made upon completion of the probating of the will. So as to the why he did what he did and why he gave money to whom he gave money to, we never had conversations like that with us. He always did what he did for his reasons, and he never discussed his reasons with me.
What is the current remaining value of the estate?
Gosh. I think the accounting has it at, is it like 100 and, I don't have the number, but I think it's just north of 100 or so.
Are you factoring in funds that are still due from outstanding investments?
I'm not, because I don't know what that ultimately will look like.
So the rough math is 170 million from the investment he made with Valor Ventures.
Anybody who's ever invested in a fund like that can tell you that those numbers they're not meaningful until they're actually realized.
When does that fund come due?
The funds, I think, are a year apart. Their initial due date, one of them, I think two, was due in 26. But there is an option for the fund manager to extend. I think at least 2 years, and then even then, with the consent of the majority of the holders, could extend it further. So right now, I don't have any specific details on when those funds will ultimately be realized.
So the estate is currently valued just north of 100 with the potential of 170. I appreciate that's unknown. And the fund allocation at the wrap up of all of the outstanding claims would be 100 to Karina, 50 to you, and 25 to Con,
That's
roughly.
100 to her, except no, because at the end of the day, because Karina was the recipient of all of the properties that were ultimately sold to pay off all the claims, there's some kind of a makeup formula for that based
So she'll
upon.
get more than 100.
She'll get more than 100. So, and that's first. So that makeup formula for all those properties gets done first, and then the rest gets
Do
done.
you all get paid in order? Or do you strike a proportional balance?
I believe it's a proportional balance after the payment of the makeup for the properties.
Okay, so first is property makeup, and then the 150, 25 is divided proportionally based off of available assets.
This is my understanding, and remember,
You're in charge of this, so.
I know, but I have
Sure.
counsel that tells me what to do.
Okay, just clarify.
So that's,
Are there any other unknown amounts that are due other than other than the potential of 170 from Valor Ventures?
there are two other funds. One of the funds is think some or something like that's a partnership. That I believe that's being sold in the, I don't know after taxes what the number comes to, but it's a
Tens or hundreds?
10, less than 10, or maybe it's just over 10. But you have to pay for taxes, number one, and that money is in part being used to fund the cash requirements of the class action settlement.
You said there's 3 outstanding claims?
The third one,
Or so are there 3 overall outstanding claims
when you say 3 outstanding claims, you're talking about,
against the estate that would
Again-
preclude you from wrapping it up?
well, there's new claims that are filed almost daily, so.
Okay.
It's certainly, there were new claims filed this past month, in addition to this class action. I don't know,
So it could be a while.
it could be a while, look,
And the most you can get paid, you got paid $250,000 for the entire thing?
I haven't gotten paid 200, that doesn't get paid until after the estate is probated.
How are you paying for attorney's fees associated with all this?
So the attorney's fees are paid from the estate, because this is all
Okay,
expenses.
not
for the estate.
yours.
No,
That's not fun.
well, I think you're saying that, I'm not,
Are you getting paid hourly for services
you're
associated?
talking about my attorney's fee?
Correct.
Oh, I'm not getting paid from the estate.
For 7 years, this has taken up
Well,
thousands of hours of your life,
exactly.
and you have not gotten paid $1.
Not from the estate, no. I pay, I had a legal practice that I'm trying to work up. I have a real estate business that I'm trying to get off the ground.
Now, can we consult on one of, it's an earlier question, I just want to make
Sure.
sure we get the record straight on the evaluated estate. Can we consult for 1 minute?
Yeah.
Mr. Hendrick?
We can go off the record.
So he's working for free until that 50 million.
We'll go back
It's-
on the record.
It's Jeffrey Epstein's web. He helped him with houses. He gave him a job. He loaned them money. Now he makes everything contingent. You got to settle everything and be my attorney in death until such time that everything is adjudicated. And then you're going to get your money. Interesting. Yeah, and in this interview, we discover that the feds never got in touch with him or the accountant in their investigations. I'm not sure how germane that is and how important that is, except to say that they probably didn't feel that this was something that would be helpful, considering the fact that everything was privileged. So maybe that's why they didn't ask. Do we know if they made overtures? Don't know. The other thing is, maybe we can ask Alex Acosta. And so they didn't ask that this Jeffrey Epstein was very generous with this guy as well as everybody else he was screwing one way or the other. And so Epstein gives them $7 million in loans, most of which were forgiven over a period of years. He paid for his and his wife's issues with fertility, and they went through, I think, 5 rounds of IVF, which is hellacious. And he paid for all that because, Epstein's big on babies. I mean, judging by what's happening at Zorro Ranch or what happened. Let's see, what else is germane? They're trying to get him to suggest or slip up on the issue of whether or not he knew he was paying off people and or warehousing people. This is how they would characterize it. I'm not saying that this is what he did. I'm just merely suggesting that they would characterize it. Oh, they have a whole immigration scam. It's a worldwide deal. We don't know that. And they're trying to get the immigration scam that he allegedly ran, the place where they were living, was paid for by Epstein. The LLC under which they were, this place was bought is in their names, but they didn't have control over it, allegedly. All of these kinds of things, the web, cinch. And indeed, this guy, this Darren Indyke, is a man who was, to some extent being taken advantage of, but he's getting paid handsomely. Should there be any money left in the estate when the trust needs to be settled? Very, very interesting. Okay, let's see what else we can find out.
Can Mr. Ndike just clarify on something that, the Congress?
So when you had asked before about the 172 rough value.
Clean
of
up on
those-
aisle
those
4.
Two funds of the LAR, I wanted to make sure that it was clear that the hundred something valuation of the estate from the last accounting includes some valuation of the LAR. So the 172 is not on top of that. There is a portion of that 172 which is not included in the 100. I don't know what the exact number is.
No, we're gonna go to the last dog dies here. We're almost there. We're gonna go to the last 10 minutes or 7 minutes.
And we've discussed Liam Black throughout our questioning today. Why would this entity make a charitable contribution of $10 million to Gratitude America?
Gratitude America.
Whatever discussions were made between Leon Black and Jeffrey Epstein as to that contribution would have been between Jeffrey Epstein and Leon Black, and not something that is not something that I was told the reason why for, just that it was going to happen. And then when I received it, I was told to acknowledge receipt.
What is the Max Foundation?
I don't specifically remember, it's not, when earlier it was mentioned the Max Foundation, it did kind of jar a memory of there being a foundation for Dean Maxwell. I don't, other than that being the case, I don't know much more about it. My understanding was that it was a charitable foundation.
Were you a trustee of the Max Foundation?
Long time ago, but I think I was, yes.
I think, remember we went through some of the speeches that Ghislaine Maxwell gave at the United Nations, and also a TEDx talk about her belief that we can buy the rest of the rights to the ocean so we can clean it up. You know, that's what the Wildlife Federation, or the different federations, that Ducks Unlimited and all this, they go when they buy land so that they can control it, even though that they don't actually live in the areas. They do it through a foundation and that sort of thing. She wants to do that with the ocean. Maybe that's what this was, the Max Foundation. And so he sat on the board, and he doesn't really remember it too well. Okay, we're almost done.
And what was the purpose of the Max Foundation?
It was a charitable foundation.
Did Mr. Epstein direct you to serve as a trustee of this foundation?
I believe it was either him or Maxwell that had requested me to do this, and this was before
Part of the web.
any information about any allegations were made about either of them.
Were you compensated for your services in serving as a trustee?
No. Not separately from whatever compensation I received from Epstein.
Did your relationship with Miss Maxwell end at some point?
The relationship, such that it was a kind of a professional relationship. When she no longer worked with Epstein, it kind of discontinued.
When was the last time you talked or communicated with Miss Maxwell?
I don't remember specifically, but as I think I said, it was a couple of years before he died.
What is the
A year or two? I'm not exactly sure.
What is the LSJE LLC?
LSJE or
Or,
LSJ?
excuse me, what is LSJE LLC?
My understanding is that LSJE LLC was the operating entity. Ultimately became the operating entity for Little St. James, the island in the U.S. Virgin Islands owned by Mr. Epstein.
Did LSJE make payments to women identified as victims?
I don't know. I wouldn't have done payroll for LSJE. LSJE was actually called LSJE stands for Little St. James Employee or Employment LLC. So that so to the extent it was making payments, it was
I wonder
My
who's
understanding was making
wonder who was overseeing that.
employed doing work on Little St. James.
Ask if he knew that. Who was overseeing that? Come on, majority council, let's go. Chop chop. Ask the question. We're the last 4 minutes of the depo.
Have you ever been contacted by any law enforcement agency concerning Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell?
To make just
That's kind of a broad question.
my memory to make sure when I tell you the answer is no, I don't think I will.
For the record, is it your testimony? Have you ever been interviewed by any law enforcement agency concerning Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell?
The answer is no, I don't believe I have. No.
Have you proactively ever provided any information to any law enforcement agency concerning Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell?
That's personally, no. I know that over the last several months, the estate has provided information to the Justice Department.
And why did they contact the estate recently?
I don't remember how long ago it was, but I remember in the early days, they had contacted us for information, the estate. When I say us, I mean the estate for information. The contact was through lawyers and handled by lawyers, not by me.
We are in an hour, so one final question. Are you surprised that no law enforcement body ever reached out to you to request information as it related to Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell?
Even my role in my role as a transactional attorney for Mr. Epstein, no.
We will go off the record.
Okay. I just wanted to go back. 45. I just want to go roll back.
Not to my recollection, no. No, and if I did say that, that's they have contacted us for information, the estate. When I say us, I mean the estate for information. The contact was through lawyers and handled by lawyers, not by me.
We are in an hour, so one final question. Are you surprised that no law enforcement body ever reached out to you to request information as it related to Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell?
Even my role in my role as a transactional attorney for Mr. Epstein, no.
We will go off the record.
And they go off the record, and that's the end. It's 6 hours and 45 minutes. Okay. No lawyer does anything for free. Boy, you know that. That is so true. Yeah, something about buying the rights to the ocean. Yeah. The fish own it, don't they? Oh, I don't know. Do they? Oh, let's see. Yeah, so what do you think? Was he lying? I'm sure that there were times when he was just like, I have the ability to pretend I don't know anything. There's nothing that will disabuse anyone of that. Should I stop talking right now? And therefore, I'm going to stop talking right now. Maybe that's what he was doing. I was going to take you back, but this took a long time. So I appreciate you sticking with me. Just an update. I was going to do a whole sit rep on the Iran situation, but something new came along, and it was a statement by President Trump about what's going on with the talks. You know, they have peace talks going on. I think they're punctuated by missiles, but they're having peace talks, allegedly, with whom we don't know. Per the Iranian government request, such as there is, let this statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern. Talks are ongoing, he says. And despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others, they are going very well. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Well, we'll see. We'll see to the extent. Frankly, I know I don't want to wish war on anyone, but this is a collection of rogues, the likes of which the world has seldom seen. I'd like to see them gone, but I don't want our people to get hurt. So that puts me in the majority. We're Team America, but we have to make sure that, you don't want to go too far. And he doesn't want to destroy that energy plant. He's already stated he doesn't want to destroy that energy plant, because what happens is we depose these bad actors. And then what happens after that? Then they have to rebuild that. If there's the new Iran is going to have to be rebuilt, and they need energy. They need desal plants. They need all kinds of things that the Ayatollah or whoever's sitting in his what do we call it? I don't know. Is it a throne? What do they call that? And so, whoever ends up running this joint, they're going to need energy, and they're going to need water. The basics. These are the basics, and this is just one of my hobby horses, so you'll indulge me for a moment. This is one of my basic things that I bring up every single time you see dysfunction in, like, say, Los Angeles. You see dysfunction in Portland, in Seattle, in different places on the West Coast, West Coast. And it's this: they never stick to the basics. They never have enough humility about them to say, these are our jobs in this portfolio. Security always comes first. Making sure that there's enough water, streets are cleaned, garbage is picked up, that sort of thing. Because basic sanitation and security is the foundation upon which good cities are run. When you cease to have those things, you have dysfunction and chaos. And Donald Trump actually knows that, which is why he's going, I really don't want to have to blow this energy plant up. And because I know whatever's left over in Iran is going to have to be, somebody's picking up pieces on it. And you don't want to destroy the energy. Plus, you're trying to, I suppose on some level, win hearts and minds. And you want the good people to stay there and not be black-pilled on the U.S. So that's another reason why you don't destroy the energy, because people actually would like to have their lights on. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Also, we could stand to get a few more Starlinks in there so people can get on the interwebs. Yeah. Grinning because you are out there and so are we. PDX says thank you. And go Team America. That's right. F yeah. Okay. We will see you the next time around. If there's anything more that I think we need to reiterate, with the sole exception of what a total asshat David Min is, or Congressman Min is, then I'll bring it to your attention. And I'm also going to be going through the accountant's deposition. We may have to do a special edition to do that, but if we don't do a special edition, hang on, because Tuesdays are coming. So Tuesdays and Thursdays for the Adult in the Room podcast on all of your podcast outlets. Please follow, comment, share, like, and get your notification requirements. Would you just go do the little bell on the YouTube channel? Mm-hmm. Anyway, please do that. I'm just checking out this last comment. I haven't seen the latest tally of people we've lost in Iran, but that seems a bit high. Anyway, okay, I'll see you on Tuesday, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. I apologize, I've got a cough lozenge in my mouth because something's going around. Appreciate it. Love you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of the Adult in the Room podcast. We do not take you for granted. We appreciate every single person who tunes in every week to listen and watch this program. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday, live streaming on Rumble, and then on every other podcast platform shortly thereafter when we can port it over and get it over there as soon as we can. All the shows can be found at victoriataft.com, where the censorship regime has been banned by me. Follow me on social media at these names: Victoria Taft, the Adult in the Room podcast, and the Victoria Taft Show. Send media inquiries, or any others for that matter, to victoria@victoriataft.com. And here's a big ask. Would you please subscribe, share, like, comment, recommend, and give this program a 5-star rating where you can? We really appreciate it. We do not take that for granted either. Follow my work at, you guessed it, victoriataft.com. PJ Media, I write tons over there. Flamingo Audiobooks, and of course the radio. I don't do this alone. This show is produced and engineered by Overall Media. 1A Cast is responsible for some of the Adult in the Room podcast's imaging. Logo design by Hageman Creative. The Adult in the Room podcast is produced at Flamingo Road Studios. All rights reserved.